Yeah.
That's right after Thanksgiving. So you might
Okay,
wait.
because I am going to Florida like Thursday, I think, so
Thursday of that week.
this week, yeah. I'll double check, but
I would
I gotta
favor
tell
a
you, I would-
Saturday date.
Yes, that's what I would too.
I would go with the second in a heartbeat, even though it's right after Thanksgiving.
well, we can talk about when we get to it. all
Yeah.
right? We're going to call the meeting to order. It's a newer practice for me, for the chairman to read the agenda. So we went into an open session at 6:30 PM and then right into an executive session. We just came out of executive session discussing legal matters. So it's now 8:45. I'm going to put the original times in on the agenda. 7:59 open session. 8 o'clock review of the Red Lion Inn complaint of October 3rd, 2013, and discuss need for an
Excuse me.
alcohol license enforcement agent. 8:15 public comment. 8:20 PM Friends of Elder Affairs application for license for annual cabaret. 8:25 PM Cohasset Triathlon request for 2014. 8:30 PM joint meeting with the planning board to discuss 3A corridor proposals. 8:50 PM town manager updates. Review analysis on options of projected net increase of $437,275 state aid and disposition of FY13 free cash of $1.3 million. 9:10 PM, taxi license requests. 9:15 PM, selectman comment. 9:25 PM, topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairman 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Approve of the minutes, August 27th, September 17th, October 15th. Next Board of Selectmen meetings, October 29th, November 5th, November 19th, December 3rd, and December 17th. 9:30 PM public comment and 9:35 adjournment. Discussion during board meetings should always be courteous and respectful and should be confined to the subject under consideration. Sarcasm is generally not respectful, and the subject under consideration does not include the individuals involved in the debate. The board approved the Code of Core Values for Civil Discourse policy that will be followed during meetings. During each topic, there will be no questions from the audience. Even if the public raises their hands, they will not be recognized during topic discussion. All statements and questions should be directed to the chairman during the public comment period, who will ask the appropriate person to respond. Comments should be kept to 3 minutes or less. This is to try to keep the meeting schedule and not run behind. This meeting will be recorded as an official record. If you wish to record the meeting in any manner, you must advise the chair prior to the start of the meeting. A copy of documents must be provided to be kept part of the official record. Okay, so it's now, we have town council here. We're gonna discuss the Red Line Inn complaint of October 3rd, 2013, and also discuss the possibility of a need for an alcoholic license enforcement agent. Paul?
Well, I wanted to say something about alcohol enforcement agents. And general laws dealing with,
Come on up.
Mike only picks up a foot away.
the general laws of the Commonwealth provide a number of provisions that give special powers to local licensing authorities or their agents. And so the choice before the board has always been, do the 5 of you want to go around to different liquor establishments, or do you want to have an agent whose job it is to do that? And if you don't have agents, then that's your responsibility. So most boards of selectmen, who are also local licensing authorities, designate agents. So in particular, for example, Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 63 states, quote, "The local licensing authorities or their agents may at any time enter upon the premises of a person who is licensed by them to ascertain the manner in which he conducts the business carried on under such license." Similarly, Chapter 138, Section 63A says that any person who hinders or delays the authorized investigator of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission or any investigator, inspector, or other authorized agent of the local licensing authorities in the performance of his duties, or who refuses to admit or locks out any such investigator, inspector, or agent from any place which such investigator, inspector, or agent is authorized to inspect, and so on, shall be punished. So, the question I asked a week ago was, who's your agent to take care of your liquor licenses? And I got an answer that was disconcerting, which was no one knew who the agents were. And so my recommendation was make sure it's clear that you have somebody who can actually go into premises, look at things, and give you reports.
Thank you. Yeah.
Couple questions. Is this the same, my understanding was this redlining complaint that's referenced here?
Yeah.
Was a noise complaint, not an
Well, we got
alcohol
two things going on.
violation?
We have a noise complaint which was under an entertainment license, is that right? But we're also, because it's an establishment that serves alcohol, we're kind of like discussing the whole situation of where we are.
Okay.
Yeah, the
so-
generic question was, what do we do with a complaint? From time to time, boards of selectmen get complaints.
Right.
And the normal step is you give it to your authorized enforcement agent to look into it and come back and give you a report. Most often, in most communities, the enforcement agents are police officers.
That's what
And you
this
have
is.
someone do it. But some communities have your building commissioner be an enforcement officer. And some communities have the fire chief be the enforcement officer. So you have options, but you ought to have somebody.
Sure.
So that when a
Oh.
complaint comes in like this, there's someone you can refer it to who can look
Well,
at it and give you a
yeah.
recommendation.
And we're also getting noise complaints, which, is there a decibel requirement on that license, or is it
It
just
says it can't be
heard at the fence
Audible
line?
beyond the
heard
fence
at,
line.
you know, inaudible from any public way or from any abutting premises, and it's in here several times.
Are these enforcement agents, kind of, in theory, are they typically just for people that hold alcohol permits?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay.
And let me address that. I did get an email from Acting Chief Quigley, and he informs me that all of the ranking officers, sergeants, deputy chief, and chief, well, no chief right now, and detectives are sworn as liquor agents. So they do have that status.
Or they do already.
They do, but I don't believe the board has authorized them to act on the board's behalf. And the second piece is that Bill had mentioned that several years ago, there was talk of modeling a rules and regulations for holders of alcohol and beverage licenses in the town of Cohasset, and modeling that after the policy that's done in Dedham. So what you have in front of you, this
That was
four-page
just handed
document,
out, yeah.
backside, it's labeled draft, is in essence the Dedham version, just with Cohasset replaced from Dedham.
So this came from you, not from Paul?
That's correct. This came from actually Acting Chief Quigley. So by no means am I asking the board to approve this tonight, but, you know, discussing this right now and hearing from the deputy chief is that, yes, they have the people that are sworn in to do it, 6 people that can do it, 7 actually. And, you know, I guess the state regulations, and Paul, you may be able to opine on this, are somewhat weak and ambiguous at times, whereas these are a little bit more specific.
I'm looking at this for the first time, so
Yeah.
I don't want to comment on this.
Yeah, so
Right.
I don't think we can truly discuss this because
Well,
nobody's had
no,
a chance
this
to
is
look
just
at
kind
it,
of
but-
an opener of where we
Yeah.
wanna move with it, but I mean, the other thing is how do we wanna
How do we
handle
handle
noise
this?
stuff? Are we, Paul, is there also a way to appoint somebody that would be responsible if we got a noise complaint to document it,
Yeah, I was just looking in here, it
Yeah.
says the manager is required to immediately notify the police department, and so on and so on. So if, it depends on who has a decibel reader. Because the best way to convict
Yeah.
somebody of doing something, and I'm not saying
yeah.
that's what you want to do, but you need somebody to investigate this and to go to the property line with a device and tell you what
Take a
is.
measurement.
Take a measurement.
Right.
And if the measurement exceeds what is allowed, then you have objective evidence from an objective source with an objective measurement.
Except for the license isn't objective.
No, it's,
It says shall be inaudible.
Right, but a sound expert would know what ambient noise level is and could testify that what is over it. In other words,
Right.
most of us are, you know, could go out and
Okay.
take a reading, but what was that mean to us because we're amateurs, so.
Okay.
But my understanding is the license that they have for entertainment, or I don't know exactly what the license entails, but they
Oh, it's in
cannot
here.
hold events outside. That's the issue.
Right.
It's not how loud that, you know, I think there
There's
might
two
be an
i-
ambient.
There's two issues. There's the visual
Since-
of seeing it happening outside, that's testimony, but there's also the sound at the property line that should be recorded, that, you know, at such and such date, at this hour, I saw something outside, and the decibel reading was 25.3 decibels.
well, the reading that I got from it was again identical. It was inaudible in this case.
Yeah.
In the larger picture, when we're, you know, where entertainment licenses would be called into question, yes, I understand your point. This specific license, though, was, I remember when it was done, there's a great deal of discussion with regard to the neighbors, because
Yeah.
it was a fairly sizable expansion of the facility. And that particular stipulation was placed in the license because of the concerns of the abutters, that in fact you could likely get quite a disturbance going on. In this case, the neighbor had sent us, I don't know if you received a copy of it, Paul, but we received a video clip on a specific date taken from the front porch of a neighbor, in which there was a fair amount of music audible on the video clip. I don't know that you need a meter at that point to say, well, this was not inaudible. And so from that perspective, I think common sense should apply. Larger question, though, is that, I mean, if we have, if we have officers who are certified, at the very least, we have the capability of administering our licenses through those officers as agents.
So,
Just one little comment here. I think I'm hearing two different things. One is that there was noise. The other is that they were outside their premises. As part of a licensing, you license a particular premises.
Mhm.
They cannot serve outside those premises. That's not a sound issue.
That's what I was trying to say.
Just that's a liquor license violation. It's pretty clear. If there's a condition of the liquor license, and it sounds like there should be a condition of the liquor license, that there be inaudible sound at the property line, you run into problems with what does that mean? That's not the best condition. And I seen a report here that a police officer was determining that the sound was not at an unreasonable level. And the question then is, what's a reasonable level and what's not a reasonable level? not audible at the property line is a pretty clear standard. That means you take the ambient sound, and there's no increase over the ambient sound. If it's very noisy, it's trucks going by all the time, there can be a fair amount of noise. You can't hear it, because there's too many other noises. The determination needs to be made by a witness who can then go, if it gets appealed to the ABCC, who can go and testify under oath. There needs to be somebody. And it's nice that there's a tape of that. That sounds like there may be enough on the issue of noise if you have a tape. I haven't seen the tape. You do want to get away from the subjective of what you hear on a tape. You want someone who's going to be available before the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission to testify, who's willing to give up a day to do that, and all the rest. You need somebody who is going to be your witness. Your witness here tonight, if there's a complaint, and a witness who will be in Boston testify about this.
Paul, there's history on decibels. Years and years ago with the music circus, somebody complained about the noise, and I think there's some legislation or something happened, but it's a long, long, long time ago, so it may be in the archives in the town. And two of us, we had a liquor violation, an appeal, and two of us from the Board of Selectmen and the Town Council went in to argue it in there. That's the only history I know.
Well, I'm trying to avoid members of the Board
Yeah.
of Selectmen
Yeah, I know. I agree
going
with
to
you on that.
properties
No, I think I
amongst all
agree.
your other duties, listening to
yeah, I
sound, and
agree.
then spending a day in Boston testifying. See what you
Thank
heard.
you.
Yeah, I
So-
know.
Paul, we have a report from a police investigator that went over there and states that the sound was unreasonable. First was reasonable in one area, and then another area it was unreasonable.
Yeah.
And we have a complaint from a citizen, so, what is our next course of action? And I believe what you said is we need to hold a hearing to at least go over this.
Yes, but putting aside this complaint for a minute, I was trying to answer a question from the chair earlier
Mhm.
before the meeting about what do we do with complaints? And what you normally do is when you get a complaint from a citizen, you send it to the enforcement agent for him or her to evaluate it and give you a report. And if the agent says there's grounds to go forward and he recommends that you go forward, then you take that report from your agent, you vote to hold a hearing, you send the report with a notice of the hearing to the establishment, tell them to come in and answer what the enforcement agent has said is the problem. Then you hold a hearing where you sit as judge and not as witnesses, because you listen to a tape. But you sit as judges, and you have the testimony of the enforcement agent, you have the response from the establishment, and then you make a decision. Was the license violated or not? And if you find the license violated, then you decide what sanction or penalty. After you make that decision, then they have 5 days, the establishment has 5 days to appeal to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission in Boston, where they're entitled to a whole hearing with witnesses, the whole 9 yards. So you want that to leave Cohasset in pretty good shape.
Hmm.
If you make a finding of a violation with serious penalties, there's a lot of money at stake for the alcohol licensee. That's going to get appealed. And you want it well done here. So the first recommendation is appoint some liquor agents. Second is that this thing should get referred to those agents to evaluate and give you a report. And the third is, if the agent comes back and tells you there's a problem with the license, then take that report, vote to hold a hearing, send the report to the licensee, have them come in, have the agent present the case, have the establishment respond to it, and make a decision.
So, Mr. Chairman, how
Yeah.
do you wanna go forward on this? I mean, should we, I mean, 'cause since we haven't had a chance to read this, should
Yeah,
we?
we can just take everything under advisement and bring it up at a future meeting. Or we can also further discuss whether we think there should be a show cause. Is it, this would be a show cause hearing on the Red Line Inn where we discuss whether we wanted to bring them in for a hearing, right?
You first need to find probable cause, basically.
Yeah.
If there's enough to
There was
go
a
forward
basis,
with
there
it.
was a basis for complaint in violation of the original license.
Yes.
What you could do is, because Detective Lennon is one of the ones that's been trained by the ABC as an investigator, as an agent, you could tonight appoint him.
Yeah.
He's already trained, he's already certified. Give him the documentation, following Paul's advice, let him review it, come back to the board with a recommendation, and then after that recommendation, you choose to hold a hearing or not to hold a hearing, based upon his recommendation of looking at the facts.
Okay. But the idea would be in the future, since he's already appointed, he would get the call and respond to the scene and be an eyewitness.
At a
more.
future
Yeah,
meeting, I
yeah.
would probably suggest we appoint a couple, so we don't
Yeah.
always have to pull him in, but the answer to that is yes.
And in addition, if we have several officers that are already trained in this end of things, I believe, Paul, if I understood you correctly, that the agent in this case can be a multiple people. It doesn't have to be a single person. So you could have, as a result, you could have an agent on every shift in the
I
department.
guess we need to know how much training level we've got right now in the department besides.
I got 4 sergeants, the
With
detective,
ABCC
Detective
training?
Lennon,
Yeah.
and
Oh, okay.
and Deputy Chief. So there's 7 people in the force right now.
Okay, excellent.
Tonight, I was just making it easy, just do Lennon, and then we can come back and with the rest of them after.
Well, it might also, just for something to think about, we may not get the complaints as they happen all the time.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It may be, the middle of the night and a neighbor hears something, or, the other end, I don't know, it could. And I think we have to define that and define what they're actually enforcement agents of. Is it just liquor license holders and, and is in the case of any of these, like bars in town, bars and tavern type stuff that has entertainment, is the entertainment license separate? If they're having a wedding outside at the Red Lion Inn, which we've asked them not to do, but if they do that, that's not necessarily a liquor license violation, is it? If there's no liquor there, or, you know what I mean? But it might be those conditions might be
Well,
tied to their liquor license. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, the more comprehensive the agent can analyze the situation when there's a complaint, the better off the town will be.
Let me just add one thing to all of this. The role of the agent is not simply to sit at his desk and wait for a complaint to come in.
Mhm.
He should be out there. If there's a requirement that there be no sound at the property line, he
make
should be
sure.
making random checks on his own without a complaint.
Mhm.
Okay.
Great.
May I move that we appoint temporarily, for a 30-day period, Detective Lennon as a license agent for the Board of Selectmen.
Liquor license.
Well, I purposely left it
Yeah.
open-ended because this particular
Other
license,
licenses, okay, yeah.
okay?
But he only has training in liquor license, right?
He has an ABCC
For-
certification.
Yeah, this is gonna take some-
I'm asking
yeah.
the question because I don't know what that
No,
involves.
alcohol,
No, I know what it means, but
Oh.
I don't know, I mean, if it's tied to
yeah,
a liquor license, or is it tied to entertainment also?
this
Went
is,
to liquor enforcement school 4 years ago.
So I think
Said
we need,
liquor
I think we
enforcement's-
need clarification on what that is.
Well, it's gonna take some fleshing out, especially with the sound, you know, how we wanna deal with sound complaints. But why don't we start as the first step of at least having officially appointed an agent?
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0?
Now, the second motion
Yeah.
then is to ask, I move that the board ask the newly appointed agent to investigate this report.
October 3rd complaint?
Yes.
Can I just clarify that for 1 second?
Yeah.
Well, we have the complaint from 9/28, and then we have the police complaint from October 4. So there's 2 of them. Am I correct?
Yep. That's what I was gonna say. There's a police complaint on October 4th, which was after the October 3rd email,
Oh, okay.
so.
But the October 4th one, if I could just interject here, seems to have been resolved.
Okay.
Is they closed some French doors, and then he said that
Oh, okay.
that solved the problem, and the complaining party was content.
Okay, so it
The
should,
liquor agent might, the license agent might decide that between the 2 of these is a pattern, and he may decide, you know, I'm gonna go out there randomly, unannounced, and check it, and based on what he uncovers, he might come back and say, I wanna go forward, I recommend you go forward in all 3
Okay.
episodes now, because it's a pattern. That's one of the things that they do,
Okay.
okay,
or supposed to do.
wrap that into your motion.
Can you summarize that, Paul? So from that
Sure, these-
perspective, I was actually thinking how to amend the motion. Since it hasn't been seconded, I withdraw the original motion.
There's a whole bunch of stuff for that
Yep.
address. Should they
Okay.
just investigate?
So the only complaint
And-
we do have then is the October 3rd complaint from the 9/28 incident?
Right, but Paul was saying we might wanna,
Let the agent decide whether, if he
Okay.
sees a pattern, but the idea would be, you wanna ask him to look into
I,
this?
I'm simply making the point that given the appointment, the original reason for this was to be able to begin to take
So
action.
you wanna refer the email to him for further
For further
Yes.
investigation.
yeah.
Good.
Does that require a vote?
I think that this is not
I
a
don't
first
think it
occurrence,
does.
so this is a.
Yeah,
No.
No, now that I have an
apparently not.
agent, I'll just refer all
Yeah,
the stuff to
yeah.
him, and
Okay.
yeah, we don't need a vote
he has
for
the
that.
police
Fair
log
enough.
and everything that's happened.
Let's move
so-
along.
Okay,
great.
But then we
These are
have
too
to know
old.
because we have to know whether
True.
we have a hearing or not.
This goes
well, he'll notify us if
He'll
he finds
notify us.
anything's
Right.
worth having a hearing about, yeah.
February.
Okay, all right, so, anything else, Paul, on that?
No.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much for your.
Thanks, Paul.
for coming in.
For your evening.
Remember, that was 30 days.
You're gonna
We're,
take a
we're all
look at
gonna
this.
review that, yeah, over the
Paul,
next
could you
week or
take a
so.
look at this as well?
Well, I mean, I'd like
Okay,
to have a larger
public
conversation
comment.
about this.
Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Schubert, 155 Sawyer Street. I just would like to inform the board that I've put forth a request for town meeting with a public petition which has been certified.
Okay,
This is not personal. It
Yeah.
is simple decision that I believe it is the best interest of the town. This is not without great forethought. I've looked at the options. I'm Jesuit trained. I looked at looking at it from the devil's advocate point of view. I was always taught if you can't get the devil's advocate view to sway your opinion, the original decision is the right decision. So I just wanted to let you
Okay.
know.
do you have a copy of the,
There should be one in the clerk's office.
okay, thank you,
Thanks, Paul.
thank you very much.
I have a copy of
Oh, you do, okay.
Of the
Well, at some point,
signatures?
we'll get copies, just so we
Oh,
can,
of the-
I haven't seen
The,
it yet.
the actual petition.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
I don't
It
think
is a
it's in this,
Oh,
we
that's
have a
right, we
notice
don't-
that we received the
But
petition,
we don't
don't have a
have the
copy of the
verbiage
petition,
on the
yeah.
petition.
So we'll get it, yeah. Okay,
Paul has it, could we get a copy of?
Tracy has it, she's gonna make copies, we just haven't had a chance to make them yet.
okay,
Well, it would be nice to have them tonight if we have to make a decision.
by the end of the night, we can get
Well,
them, yeah.
there is no decision other than the date that we
Right,
have to make.
exactly, exactly, but
So,
Okay, further public comment.
Hi. I just wanted to take this opportunity to
Paul.
address the upcoming tax bills that are due November 1st, quarter two bills. This is something that's been going on since 1992. What's different this time is that two bills were mailed in June. So actually, some people have come to my office and called and asking where their bill is. And the truth is they received it back in June. The way the bill is set up is in three parts. The very bottom, which was due in August, the middle piece is due in November, and then the top piece is for your records. And that was also sent with a little notice letting people know about the change. So we've been trying to put up signs and let people know so that, because a lot of people haven't gotten it, and this will probably continue, but hopefully a lot less. This will be the worst time through. But it will be happening again. We'll be mailing out quarter 3 and 4 at the end of December, so you'll get those at the very beginning of June. One thing you might want to do is consider paying online, because you can actually schedule your payments through Unipay Gold, which is through the town's website, and you can schedule them on or before both due dates, so you don't have to pay in advance, and you don't have to worry about forgetting. You just don't close the bank account in between that.
Hey, Paula, would
Thank you.
would escrow agents have any difficulty figuring out the dual billing?
No, they
Okay.
usually are in contact with our billing company, and they get the records, or they contact our office and get everything squared away. So it's people who are paying their taxes on their own
Okay.
without an escrow that typically
Thank
have
you,
an
Paul.
issue. Anything else?
I'm glad
Thank
you
you.
brought that
Thank
up,
you.
because
Thank you for waiting.
I was wondering why
Coming
that
and
sign
getting
was
public
on
service.
Forest Avenue.
it's not in my pay folder.
Further public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to the Friends of Elder Affairs, is application for an annual cabaret. Does
I
everybody
move it.
have that?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Cohasset Triathlon request for 2014.
Good evening.
How we
Hi,
doing?
Bill.
Hi there. Good, thank you. Mr. Chairman, it's been 8 years since I've sat before you.
Really?
Yeah, we're on our 8th annual, so thank you for
Wow.
your support.
You're welcome.
So my name is Bill Burnett. You have in front of you, in your packet, a completed application. All the department heads, including the Sandy Beach Association, has approved the date of June 29th, 2014. Just a few opening remarks, and then I'd be happy to take any questions. You know, think of where we've come with this event. We're a nationally recognized event today in our great community. We've built a safe and cohesive race plan that essentially becomes a superior training plan for all of our police and fire teams. We're bringing commerce to Cohasset in the form of real estate sales, business on race weekend, and not to mention the ongoing buzz after the event. We've generated nearly $1 million for type 1 diabetes, and we support various projects within the town. And what's really cool for me is to see young kids who want to get involved in this event. We can take kids as young as 13 in the triathlons. To see them already excited about living a healthy, active lifestyle is something that I think is great. So over those course of eight years, Mr. Chairman, we've made some changes. Each year we look at the race and how can we improve the event. And so here's some changes we've made. We started the race earlier. So we're starting now at 7:45 in the morning. And we're through Main Street at 9:30 in the morning. We've moved the beginners to the beginning of the event. So these are the beginner triath athletes. They're now at the beginning of the event, not the end. So we're getting some of the beginner athletes out in the course sooner. Thus, we're through the town commons earlier. We've opened the transfer station up earlier on Sunday morning. And this year, as you see in your packet, I'm excited to announce that we're going to change the bike course. This is going to be a nice improvement. What's going to happen now is at the corner of St. Anthony's, athletes will make a right on Summer Street. Previously, they were going right through Main Street. We're going to make a right on Summer Street. They're going to make then a left onto Elm and then get back onto Main Street. And here's why that's going to be so great. Because now St. Anthony's will have easy traffic access, pedestrian access to all of their services. I've talked to Father Mulvihill. He's pleased with this change. furthermore, I think it's gonna be great for the businesses on Main Street too. So that's been a nice improvement for this year. So with that being said, I'll take any questions and ask for your vote for June the 29th of 2014.
Can you just one more time, on the bike, they're gonna be driving through the center of town at approximately what time? Like, between what hours?
athletes
Yeah,
are
biking, yeah,
So we're no longer going through center of town,
okay. Oh,
right?
okay.
So think of it this way,
Yeah.
Diane, we're
Right.
biking down Main Street from Situate. We're gonna make a right on Summer before
Yep.
St. Anthony's. Right, and we're gonna make that loop into on the border,
Right.
back onto Elm.
Yep.
That will then open up, through our analysis, and talking to police and fire, will open up all of that St. Anthony's intersection.
Okay.
Which has been a bit,
Yep.
That's been an issue that we've tried to develop a situation that will work, but we think this is gonna make it better, certainly for the congregation of St. Anthony's. And then we'll come back onto Main Street. Again, to reinforce this is super important. We will be out of that commons will be cleaned up, free traffic both ways at 9:30
Okay,
in the morning.
great.
So that also helps all the other churches, right? That's really important. So St. Stephen's and Second Congregational Church will have no problems getting to the 10 o'clock service.
Yeah, First Parish has service at 10 o'clock too.
That should be no problem at all. That's right.
I wanted to ask you about the use of the beach.
Yes.
I've had complaints, and I was down there on Saturday afternoon, blocking from, people were concerned that they couldn't get in to use the beach because you had set up and they weren't allowed to park or something. I don't know what exactly happened, but this was one complaint I have. And also, when getting the Sunday people, because we might have a very hot weekend, and people coming down on Sunday, will you be through, or will it be more available
Right.
on Sunday?
So-
I'd like to know the hours
Right.
on everything.
So Martha, we work with the Sandy Beach Association, and we meet with them a couple times a year.
I
Before the event,
understand
after
that.
the event. And you're right, there was a miscommunication this year's event. We've identified the situation. We've talked to Sandy Beach and said basically, we would like to start setting up the race at 5 o'clock on Saturday.
5
Wow.
PM,
5 p.m.
5 PM, okay.
So that is a late night for us, but at 5 p.m. we would like, and let me also reinforce, the beach is not closed. People will still be able to park and use the beach up until when the beach closes. I believe it's 8 o'clock? 7 o'clock, thank you.
7 o'clock,
So the
yeah.
beach is still open. But at 5 o'clock, we're gonna start setting up some things, we'll start moving some cars to a certain section of the parking lot. That's really important to emphasize. As far as your question, as far as Sunday is concerned, history says that usually at about noon, 12:30, things start to open up. People are able to go and park at the beach.
Yeah, okay, because that was, some of the people told me on Saturday afternoon they were turned away. Somebody was checking and they were turned away. And that,
Are you able to open the gate that's usually closed at the north end?
at the
Or-
north end.
You
yeah.
are, okay.
We'll work with Sandy Beach
Yeah.
with Sandy Beach on that.
And I know when you
Robin is
originally
shaking
had
his
it, you
head,
had it,
so-
there were 700 people, you have so many more people. And I wondered, yeah, that's all. Yeah. And is this a national, is this a national group, your whole group? Do you have other sites where you have triathlons? I don't know about, and you must be a nonprofit. I'd like to know a little bit about your organization.
We are a for-profit company. The company is
There
called
you are.
Streamline Events.
Oh, you are a for-profit, okay.
I'm the managing director of the company.
Mm-hmm,
We have events, we do events in Duxbury and Situate,
Good.
on Nantucket Island, Salem, Massachusetts. It's, started as a dream for me, Martha, and now it's become a reality. It's been really exciting.
And how would the communities, do you have, make sure that the public is allowed, isn't too,
I can tell you,
Problematic.
Martha, that every community we've ever been to, we're always invited back. And I would be happy for you to speak to your counterparts in Mashpee, Situate, Nantucket, Salem.
I just wanted to know
Duxbury.
the scope of your activities, that's all. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Bill, if I understand it correctly, then you anticipate the use of the beach roughly, setup is not closed down for the rest of the beachgoers, but setup begins roughly at 5 o'clock Saturday night.
Right.
And you assume that for the most part, you're opening up again, if you will, the next day at noon.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's exactly
Okay.
correct. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Is
And-
that a change? Oh, no.
Yeah, it
After
is.
you-
Well, I think what you said is it condenses the period of your activity quite a bit from
we've
years
worked-
past.
Yeah, we've worked hard. That's really important to Sandy Beach Association, and we feel very fortunate to use the property to stage the event, and so we will work with the community, as I think we've shown over the last few years, right? I mean, to start at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
we're working all night basically, and then we close on as quickly as we possibly can.
Just point of information, the beach is always open, it's the parking lot which is.
Right. Thank you.
The beach is open,
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's a good point, Rod. Thank you.
and the swimming is not available for beachgoers during the time of triathlon. It's the only.
I didn't hear what you said about
No swimming for regular beachgoers during the time of the triathlon.
And that,
But the beach is always open, it's a
And,
parking
and the
lot.
time of the triathlon is between up till 12, huh?
Lifeguards are not on duty until about 11:30. Some of them actually.
that's Sunday.
That's not
So
Okay.
During the triathlon.
What are the hours when you are actually swimming on Sunday?
First.
Well, our swim starts at 7:45 in the morning, and the last swimmer would be out at 9 o'clock.
That would be my husband.
Or-
Sorry, I had to.
Oh,
Sorry, hi.
oh boy,
They're
man.
using, they're using between 9 and 12, the ceremonies and
Floaties?
packing up and stuff. Is that,
I'm sorry, Martha?
so between 9 and 12, you are packing up and having ceremonies and stuff?
No, so the swim is first, and then they're gonna bike, and then they have to run. So our last, we're through the downtown. The last biker comes through at about 9:20, 9:30.
Yeah.
The last runner will come through at 10:30.
So,
But even the
Martha,
runners, but even the runners impact the traffic, don't they? Because,
Just around Little Harbor. That's right.
little bit.
are the runners gonna take the same course as the bikes, or they,
No.
No. okay.
So runners go Beach Street, and then they get on. They take from Sandy Beach, go up Beach Street, and then down Jerusalem, and then back up to Atlantic. It's a 5K, 2-mile run.
Anybody else have any?
Oh, go ahead.
Bill, you and I have been around and round on this in the past, so here we are again. You know that I support the triathlon, and I have always said how envious I am of you that you can have a business doing something that you truly love. But the estimated total of attendance is 1,000, and my recollection is that a previous board had capped it at about 900. I brought this up last week. I don't know.
I think that was 3-4 years ago. I think that was.
Yeah, the 1,000 has been what it's been for the last couple of
Yeah.
years.
So did another board vote to change that?
That was before my time, and I would assume so, because they approved the application with more runners, more participants. And I think you can actually handle more capacity, and you've limited it to 1,000.
Yeah,
No,
our
I think
numbers.
I think it's not Bill's capacity. I think it's the town's
No,
capacity.
agreed, and that's what
And the
I'm saying.
effect on the community. It does have, I appreciate everything that you've done in the years that I've not been on the board, to work with the town. There's great improvements, and, I thank you for that. But it still is a major impact on the community, and as we've talked in the past, the people that sit up here, that's our job, is to make sure that the community, the welfare of the community is our concern. And then I guess, I had a question, Michael, I guess for you, the insurance, is that,
This is on page 4, I think it is. This is the form that the events committee put together that
Oh,
covers our
I
insurance.
understand that. I'm asking you about is there insurance in place?
Yes, this is what they're required to do. They don't give it to us until prior to the event, so we don't have the
But
certificate.
you do get a,
Correct.
Thank
We get
you.
it from, yes.
okay. And I did see that the health agent has given you 1 week prior to the event for your food vendor permit. Okay.
I would like to know, since it's a for-profit organization, and you say you give money, what percentage of the money in Cohasset do you give?
So Martha, what we do is we look at specific projects.
You look
Uh,
at projects, yeah.
I look at a certain project and I'll say, so so 2 years ago, we helped Trish Morris, who came up with an incredible project of the Share the Road signs. We funded $1,800 worth of those signs. Last year, one project was Christmas lights. The Chamber of Commerce came to me and said, we need money to put lights on the Christmas trees, so I gave money for that. This year, I've talked to Carl at with the head of DPW and looking at some things that he may need. I've talked to the chiefs of what things they need. So we're already funding, looking at different things that we can buy, material things that we can give to these departments that are giving back to us.
Now, how much is an entry fee?
An entry fee is $90.
So 90 times 1,000, you get a lot of money.
Well, as I said before at our last meeting, one of the things that they do is they cover and pay for all the police details
true, I
and
know.
public safety
I was
details
going to ask
from all different
expenses, too.
towns
Yeah.
that, is probably their biggest expense in being able to do that. So where you were talking at the last meeting about what happened with the Boston Marathon bombing and the regional training, this is Cohasset's opportunity to have a command center brought down and actually establish an incident response team to deal with this. So I think that that's also another, value that the
that's
community
fine.
receives for that otherwise we would be paying tens of thousands of dollars for.
Well, we might not have it, yeah. St. Anthony's is still quite concerned about this, because you turn around in front of a church, and, let's see, there's a mass, I think, at 10:30. I'm not a member of the church. When are the,
9:30.
9:30, and that's the end. Is this supposed to be
Martha,
the
have you
end?
talked to Father since
Yes,
a week ago?
yes.
And he said to you, he's still very concerned.
Yeah, well, he mentioned it.
But what did he say to you?
He said, it's better. It's much better than what it
So
was.
it's much better then. So
Mm.
I've made changes, Martha.
Yeah,
to
I
ensure-
understand that.
To ensure traffic goes in and out of the
Mhm.
parking lot easier, pedestrians are easier.
Yeah.
I think, Martha, we've made a big
No,
improvement
no, I know
with
you
that.
have.
So when you said very concerned, that's not an accurate statement.
Well, his tone was that way, but
Mr.
he has
Chairman?
told me that he has made changes. So I just, I'm hoping there'll be no problem there, but everything you've done here is a great improvement. And I'm just concerned a little bit of the scope of it, so many people. And I know that I got a tremendous amount of complaints about it from, not people who live right around there, from people in the town, that they feel that it's
And Martha?
too big for the town, but and when it was smaller, it was fine. That's just what I hear as comments.
Martha,
It
what
doesn't
I
mean
wanna s-
I view that way.
Martha, what I want to say to you then is, if you're hearing complaints, I would hope that you would really investigate that and call me and let's talk about it. Am I to come to you, or should you come to me with these complaints? I don't know about these complaints. You're the one who's bringing up these complaints. Please come to me, call me, so I can learn from it and make it better. Because everything in my history says I'm making it better. So in the future, Martha, when you're hearing these complaints, call me.
Well, I was just giving it to you because we have the hearing.
Mi-
That's all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if there's not anything material further, I'd like to call the question.
Karen was about to say something.
I was just gonna say to Bill that Please don't take questions or inquiries or
offensive.
comments personally or as offensive. We're just trying to do our job, and you're trying to do your job, and hopefully we can do that together and lessen the impact on the town, which you've been trying to do, and still have the wonderful event that you put on. So, you know, it's a collaboration and working together. You know, let's not get.
Well, I think this is a big improvement for that
Yeah, absolutely.
intersection.
It
We
is.
survived
I
the
know
last
that.
8 years, and we're continually working on improving it. So I think as long as we keep working together to
Yep.
improve things, we'll be in good shape.
Yep.
Exactly.
I just have
Yeah.
two quick questions, or what, they're kind of questions wrapped in a statement, which is, how many Cohasset residents actually participate as athletes?
Roughly about 200 people.
I would love Martha to come and get you. My husband is an athlete that does triathlons and road races almost every weekend. I've been to hundreds of them. This is one of the best run, best managed, most efficient events in town, and everybody in town is there. People come down and watch. These 2,000 spectators or whatever it is are people from the community that go down there, that ride their bikes down, that watch their neighbors and their friends or their husbands or their wives participate. A lot of the kids are participating with their parents, and the volunteers are all, for the most part, Cohasset residents. So I think this is, and I agree, we have to ask hard questions. Our responsibility is to the town. You've addressed every concern each year. Each year it can only get better. I think it's a fabulous event, and I move the date of June 29th.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will give a qualified vote of yes. You have improved things. I would like to have a full report done afterwards, so we know.
We meet.
Just so I needed it for my own evaluation,
So
that's all.
great, Martha. So two quick things on that. So at the end of each event, we meet with the department heads, and I will make sure I'll make sure that you're invited to that meeting. It's at the police station about a week or two after the event.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two is I wouldn't please come to the event, see it for yourself. What we're
I've
doing.
seen it for years.
Okay. Well, so
When it
come
was
say
a
hi to me.
smaller
Come
one.
say hi to
Bill,
me
Bill,
once in a
thank
while.
you for tonight.
Okay.
We've got a lot of
Sure.
business
Thank
to
you.
do.
Planning Board, joint meeting. Come on up. Thank you for your patience.
I didn't bring all that stuff. Oh, I was sick today.
How we
That's why I
doing?
didn't do it
Do you want
Yeah.
to share it?
Yeah, I'll share it. I have it in a folder right away.
Maybe you and I should.
Perhaps as a moral. Mr. Chairman, if I may, just so we're clear on the record, this is on your agenda as a joint meeting. We did not notice this as an official meeting. of the
Okay, well,
planning board.
I think
We're
you're
here to
covered
talk
by our meeting, yeah.
But if
As long as
somebody-
you're not taking any votes, we'll
We're
be all
not-
set.
No deliberation.
We're not
No
gonna
vote,
deliberate,
no
we're not gonna
deliberation.
vote, we're just gonna chat. I give you time for you all. We're here as a part of the continuing process for the corridor study of Route 3A that had its genesis about 3 years ago when Clark, myself, and Charles Samuelson talked about some of the problems that have been happening on 3A, most specifically the high rate of car accidents up there, and the concern of the amount of commercial and residential permitting that has gone, that has occurred on Route 3A during that period of time, specifically to refresh everyone's recollection. Starting north of town is the multi-use complex right next to the train station, which has a residential and a commercial component to it. Moving south, of course, Avalon. Before Avalon we have done a commercial subdivision approval of the Situate Hill area, which is that hillside that's been partially excavated to the left of the medical buildings that are up on the hill there. And then, of course, we have Avalon, and now we have coming on board would be the Toll Brothers former Cedarmere project, not to mention the development that is occurring, both commercial and industrial, north and south of our town. So,
Also, Stop and Shop, might as well mention.
yeah, Stop and Shop, we approved, still on yet new box in the Stop and Shop complex. So when I met with Clark, well, first Charles and I went to the then police chief just to talk to him about the problems on 3A, and we learned that on a weekly basis there's 1.5 accidents on average on Route 3A, and in light of what we thought as lay people, that is a particularly high number for a town of this size, and then with the understanding of the development that's going to come on board and the general concern that going forward we didn't want 3A to turn into if you think of Route 139 in Marshfield, which is a particularly heinous strip of road, we thought it would be a good idea to start thinking about what we can do to 3A today with an eye towards the future. I then talked with Clark, who's far more educated and well-versed in these matters, and he said the first thing you need to do before you do go anywhere, start talking about so much as changing a road striping, is you've got to do a complete corridor study of Route 3A by professional engineers, traffic engineers, to determine what the problems are, what the needs are, and to come up with potential remedies. The problem we have, of course, with Route 3A is nobody in this room controls it. It's owned by the Department of Transportation. We're going to, we, meaning Cohasset, if we as Cohasset decide that we want to advocate for any changes in it going forward, are going to have to go to DOT and advocate before them to make changes. Nobody is pretending this is going to be a simple project, that this is a one-step project. This is probably 20 years worth of work that needs to be done. So the next problem we had was how do we get, now remember going back 3 years now, how do we get a corridor study done when the town doesn't have any money? And Clark Brewer took the bull by the horns on that one and beat the bushes and found out that the state was offering grants to do corridor studies, that the state, through the Central Transportation Planning staff, would provide the same type of experts, same type of traffic engineers, as we would go out and hire ourselves, were we to do it on our own. Clark successfully pushed all the paperwork that was required, and the paperwork that was subsequently required, and the paper that was subsequently required. And the bottom line is we got the grant beating out 13 other communities, apparently. So, several months ago, about 6 months ago, we had an initial meeting where we had hoped would be attended by a lot of people from the community who might want to weigh in on the problems on 3A. We advertised it on the Mariner. I came before you guys in the citizens' comment period to advertise it to your burgeoning television audience. And we reserved the auditorium, figuring we would have thousands, and we had teens. Unfortunately, although the people who did show up gave a lot of good quality input. And the Central Transportation Planning staff was and continues to be looking for the town to have input on what is their study. And the planning board is very concerned that the town, the citizen trees, concerns, and observations and anecdotes at least get looked at and are factored in by the minds up in Boston who are doing this work. So we had that meeting. Then the engineers started their work. It went on for several months. About 6 weeks ago, they came down and briefed a lot of the departments, including at a meeting attended by the planning board. Garrett Bradley sent a representative. The fire department was there. The town manager that was there. The police department was there. The DOT showed up. Representatives from Situate were there. And the Central Transportation Planning staff gave an elaborate probably 3-hour presentation on where they were and where they are in the project. Regrettably, we don't have a whole lot of time here tonight to get into this, and maybe this would be better handled at a time where we had, a good hour, an hour and a half to go through this. And at that meeting, the people up in Boston, the engineers, presented the preliminary draft that is before you now. And what they have asked us to do is to solicit the input from the town again before this draft goes final. And so that concerns, inputs can be looked at by them and at least considered by them as this report goes final. And I think it's also important for the community that the community has a sense that it had an opportunity to contribute to this, since the community is not controlling the engineering process here. There are pluses and minuses to that. The pluses are you get a completely dispassionate set of engineers who are studying this without any political or any political baggage that might come from town. The downside is we probably don't get to influence it as much as we want. But given the fact that the price was right, it was hard to say no. And with that, why don't I turn this over to Clark, who can speak far more better on
Thank you, Stuart.
things studied than I.
I'm gonna also be brief. The grant was applied through the MPO, and Mass DOT and being able to influence Mass DOT and making short-term as well as long-term changes on the corridor is really critical. So Mass DOT is a member of the MPO. We got the grant through the MPO, and what this grant does is and what the work of the transportation engineers have done is establishes a foundation where they've sifted through years of planning board documentation, the statistics, the safety statistics from the police department and fire department, and with the biggest emphasis being on safety. And what we're gonna have to do over the long term, once we have the details of the plan released, and the town manager indicated that we may be able to put this on the website for citizens to take a look at. Certainly the details aren't etched in stone, but the main big concepts generally are good and really positive, I think, for the town. Each intersection has to be looked at really carefully in terms of design, and then the connections in between need to be looked at very carefully with any specific changes. The easy things to do would be to adjust speed limits as the conditions have changed over the past 2 decades that I've been in town. Traffic stops between Avalon and Stop and Shop sometimes when there's no street lights in the afternoon. It takes 2 or 3 times longer to pull out onto 3A from the King Street turnoff. Sawyer Street and Pond Street and Beechwood have signalization, but one thing that came out of the Toll Brothers hearings is the Beechwood intersection is problematic. Maybe from a statistical standpoint, it's the most dangerous in town. But the idea of the study is to have a framework where we can start implementing changes. We can also keep an eye out for grants that are available, and whatever can be self-performed by the town and with the blessing of the Mass DOT. One thing that's looming out in the horizon is some repaving is planned for the south end of 3A, and we want to make sure that any recommended changes and safety improvements can get implemented. That I know Brian Joyce has been talking with the district managers, and we want to be proactive, maintain as much, I think, local control as possible, and be as effective at working with Mass DOT as possible. So that's all I wanted to say.
As you read through the draft, keep in mind what this document is. This document is not presented as an absolute, here's how you have to do it, take it off the shelf and hand it to the engineers, or hand it to the guys with the background. The entire report here is conceptual, and is, I don't wanna say it's a 30,000-foot view of this, but it's 10,000-foot view of the problem. You'll see throughout the document, it calls for more studies, more engineering. What this does is it provides us, from end to end of the corridor, highlights the big concerns that they think we should be looking at. And now it's our job, since we're the ones who gotta motivate DOT to do something, is to figure out a process going forward whereby, presumably between the planning board, the town manager, the town planner, and the board of selectmen, get Garrett Bradley's office involved, get Bob Headland's office involved to try to shake up some money, and for this room to determine what are the strategies and the tactics for implementing what we think needs to be implemented. What projects do we ask for, in what order, what time frame would we like to see these done? Get some idea of what is reasonably doable in 2 years, what's reasonably doable in 5 years, what packages need to be put together, and things like that. So I wanna make sure everyone is clear that nobody is suggesting that this is the end of the road as far as the study, the proposals, the engineering, and the discussion on this, okay? This is general, and at that meeting, they emphasized over and over again the general nature of this. And I even wrote a note to myself that this is not set in stone, these are merely suggestions. The town needs to set a list of the priorities that it thinks are the most important, probably using this as a really good guide. Mike, do you wanna-
Sure, and I'd like to just follow up on that, and thank you, Stuart, for not taking the 3 hours to regurgitate what we sat through at that meeting, because we didn't have 3 hours tonight. But to reemphasize, this is a conceptual plan. Nothing is locked into stone here. What we have done is gone out and met with some of the business owners that are potentially more impacted by some of the suggested or recommended improvements that are here. But I want to summarize the improvements with these plans into basically 3 items, and this will be posted online. And actually, we're going to, with Brian Joyce, Stewart, and Clark, we're going to do a cable show to really take some time and go through this point by point so that people are aware of the plan. But the 3 fundamental changes that this conceptual plan looks at is adjusting curb cuts throughout the corridor. I will tell you right now, some of the curb cuts they put in there are problematic. So the plan is not without flaws. There are some adjustments that need to be done. But those curb cuts sometimes reduce left-hand turns coming into head-on traffic. The next major improvement is in front of Shaw's, reducing those 4 lanes down to 2 lanes with a center turn lane. But from Shaw's all the way down to the Curtis Plaza. The third area is where we're looking to put new traffic signals at key intersections, is to include left-hand turning lanes so the traffic can still go by without having to stop because someone's waiting to take a left-hand turn and locking up the traffic. And that happens throughout the corridor. There are many other suggestions, conceptual thoughts in here, but that kind of summarizes the 3 of them. Again, we want public input. This is one version. There's been a lot of work put into this. There may be some minor things or some major things that others have thought about. In our meetings with several of the major business owners, they have made recommendations which we have memorialized and will put into a report. But at the end of the day, I think is what Stuart said is it's up to us to motivate Mass DOT to do something. They're not going to come down and just fix 3A just because they want to. They'll come down and resurface it because they have to. But they're not going to come down and modify and change some of the intersections or put sidewalks for where some of the schools need to have in there. So at the end, after we get the public input, we're going to need to identify what the low-hanging fruit are. What are the areas where there's general consensus on moving forward? And we develop an implementation plan with everyone to make those happen. There will be some areas that will require additional study, that will take time, and we will have to move that through its process. There are many different funding avenues in here, through the Transportation Improvement Plan, through the delegation support, through money that Avalon and the Toll
Mr.
Brothers
Chairman,
have given
I'd
us
like
for
to
this,
make a comment.
as well as some safety grant funds that others have looked at. But until we identify what it is we collectively want to have happen to our corridor, we really can't move forward. And that's what this does, is shed light on it, have an open, transparent process. And we do need to get input to the state relatively quickly. They were hoping by the end of the month. I think if we extend that another week or so, Clark, that's probably not going to be a problem. But after people hear about this plan through the cable show, look at it online. If we're able to have another public meeting, we will. Send in those comments so we can move forward.
Martha?
I thought the first public hearing was very good, and my concern is the accident rate on 3A, and it seems to me the Beechwood area, I've seen many accidents there, having left turns and change the lights so that you have the left turn lane and so forth. I'm afraid, in some areas, if you put the curb cuts, you have to have another road. And I don't think there's enough room if you're cutting down near where the restaurant is across from, in that area across from Avalon. That's one of the most critical areas with the curb cuts. And I don't know how easily you could have going in one way and out, but you can't do the whole line because the topography goes up and down unless you do real road construction. So, and I think that's a very dangerous area. Cars coming out from Avalon and all that area. I think that's critical. I think giving permits in the future by the planning board and by your board, you can make some cleaning up. I don't know, but those are some of the things. I thought the hearing we had before gave a lot of the ideas which Michael has reiterated, and it was very helpful. And maybe you can get piecemeal if you do the traffic studies, and get the actual cross lights. Maybe the study can do some of it piecemeal, even though the study is still very good. I think the draft is very, very good, and doesn't need too much improvement in there. But I'm only a layperson. You people are doing the planning. So.
Clearly, light synchronization is something.
Yeah, I know.
About for years.
Well, there's 65 or 70 lights already from this area. And we tried, I remember when this Stop and Shop went in to get a double light thing, and they didn't do it. They did studies and said it wasn't necessary. And that, I thought, was a real omission, because getting out from the schools and so forth, it's very difficult getting out there. And that is a really, but you could synchronize those two together and not, because it would be silly to have one up and then the other one down. So that, I think, is but at the Avalon area, I find that's very difficult. I don't know what you can do there.
It's gonna be a tough nut.
Yeah, that's a very tough one. Thank you.
Stuart, are you looking for written comments? Are you, under what format are you soliciting them?
The last time what we did, I don't have a good answer for you, I'll let Mike talk about it. The last time what we did is we simply had the meeting, and we sent our minutes unedited, uncommented on, to credit the CPDS. So here's what people have to say.
Yeah, and
Mike, what's your thought on?
Well, written comments are helpful when they can be articulated appropriately, but, some of the things that Brian Joyce and I have been doing is meeting with potential property owners and trying to look at different configurations that they would be supportive of. Because I want to make sure you're aware of, there is a liability for going through and doing a corridor study. Mass Highway will, A, not pay for the design, and B, not deal with any type of easements, whether they be temporary, permanent, or construction easements, nor will they do any land takings if it's required to put in a left-hand turning lane and you need another 3 feet on each side of the road. That will all fall back onto the Board of Selectmen at some point in time. Having said that, written comments are preferred. Clearly, some people we need to sit down with and we need to go over some configurations where it affects their property. We've set up, a few meetings with some of the property owners. Once this gets out, we hope to set up more.
Mind if someone's sending you an email?
Yes, sending to myself or to Brian Joyce, and then we'll coordinate it, and sometimes Stuart and Clark are able to sit with those meetings. I do want to point out, and Clark, Stuart mentioned that, there were several iterations where Clark, he was like a dog with a bone. Basically, he had MAPC by the ankle. They said no. He wouldn't let go. They said no again. And then finally, after 3 years of holding on, the third time, they provided the funding for this.
The truth is, it's taken a lot of meetings, and we've asked for the support of as many people as seem to be interested. Certainly, members of the town of Selectmen, the regional MAPC chapter, Headland's office and Bradley's office. We asked for letters just to get the grant. And we're going to have to continue that sort of outreach and get as wide support on a local level, and then kind of go back up the food chain and really try and get a handle on the changes that make sense, and then work on implementing them.
I just have a quick question. On the safety framework, we know Beechwood Street and 3A is the number one. What's number 2 and number 3 areas of concern related to safety?
Well, it's the whole corridor, all the way to the train station,
Yeah.
where there's no sidewalks, no access to the train station. I think from a crash number
Yeah.
on street is the next.
Yeah, I mean, just for comparison, a crash ratio is supposed to be 1 or below.
Yeah.
Okay, once you hit that 1, you have a serious issue.
Never measured my kids, did you?
Beechwood is 1.53. That is the worst intersection that's there.
Yeah.
However, as Clark is saying, the section between Beechwood and Lower King is about 1.68, but that's a whole area versus a section. So I guess to really answer your question, Fred, is the Beechwood is the primary piece. The second is kind of around Sawyer up through Avalon,
That's very
right at the
bad.
top of that hill,
Yeah.
which is, only 300 feet.
Yeah.
That's really your second area.
Specifically, the traffic engineers stated, and I wrote this down, the Beechwood intersection is, quote, very unsafe. That seems like pretty strong language.
Yeah, it is. I've actually went in the parking lot of Shaw's, and at the corner, and I watched it for about 15 minutes. I mean, people shoot red lights.
There's a lot going on there, and
Oh,
it's way too fast.
it's terrible.
Well,
Because if
we
you
could,
have
we
the
could fix that with the little police.
well, no, if you have a left turn arrow and have the lanes, that would help a lot.
I think anything that can slow the traffic down. on
Yeah,
3A
yeah, that's
in
right.
that area is a
Mhm.
good thing. If it's putting a police detail out there,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it's, putting a temporary sign, a
Mhm.
flashing thing that tells you when to pay your taxes.
Mhm.
Hopefully it tells people to slow down, dangerous intersection.
Well, one thing I think that we might wanna think about, which is almost a policy issue, is 3A is a dual-use highway.
Mm-hmm.
It's, one use is, it's a commuter route from Situate, Marshfield, up, through here. And the use case, the goal of those folks is to get through town as fast as they can, not stop at the stop signs, right? So the other use, of course, is local traffic who wants to go to the hardware store, the gas station, the bank, the shopping centers. Those two aren't necessarily, compatible uses, and I think we should try to think of some way to mitigate that dual use thing, so that we either emphasize one of the uses, is our priority or not. Do we really want it to be optimized as a commuter? I think maybe only sometimes of the day, right, as opposed to other times of the day where we really want it to be a local traffic thing. That's one sort of comment, some thought I had. The second one is, I agree with Martha. I go through the Beechwood intersection a lot. I also, every morning on the way to work, I stop at Pond Street to go right on the 3A. I would say the majority of the time, sitting at Pond Street, waiting for the light to turn. When it does start to turn, a car or two cars will go through there, way above the speed limit.
Way beyond
And the
red.
light is green before they get through the intersection, in my
Yeah.
thing. The same thing happens at Beechwood. I mean, I don't care
that's
what the
awful at
light says.
Beechwood.
I stop and look around, because I've almost been hit there 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is completely in our control, right? I mean, I would certainly advocate, real heavy police presence there. If there's some way to do that through the Board of Selectmen or the town manager, I think if we strictly enforce the speed limit there, for a month or so, and or enforce the going, running the yellow / red lights thing, I think the message would get through real quick that you just don't do that in Cohasset, right? And that's something we could do ourselves and probably even make money on. I don't know where the money from the tickets go, but I'm sure that we could more than pay for the overtime of the police force by the number of tickets you would write there until people learned that they had to slow down and honor the lights we have. So I'd strongly recommend that.
But if you had the left turn signal, that would stop
Sure.
a lot. I find that
I
that's
don't know,
very good.
There are times up at Stop and Shop where there's that center line thing.
Yeah.
And, very often I'm taking a left-hand turn to go into Whitney Thayer. And many times, especially during commuter hours, I feel like I'm taking my life in my hand to be in that middle lane. Because people use it as a travel lane.
It's not called a suicide lane for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not in love with that idea because
Yeah, I'm not proposing.
No,
a solution here other than.
No, I'm with you on the police, 100%.
I think
Yeah,
that
you
just-
need that
just-
too. Yeah, I
If the
agree
speed
with
limit's
you.
35, if
Yep.
you're going 40, you should get a ticket.
Yep.
Right? And if we did that for a few weeks, that message would get out really quick.
What about camera traps? An idea too.
Well, I was just gonna mention that, and it's, when you're redoing the signals, now what you're starting to see is for security after 9/11 is having cameras established around intersections, but they can have dual purposes. One is they can do a camera trap, and the second is provide a security if there's some major incident that happens in town. You can all of a sudden monitor all the exits, if you will, out of the town, if there's been a major break-in or burglary or something like that. But
Not
that is
arguing
an
the
option.
merits. That's going to be a big discussion, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
All I can
the
say
point
is
is,
the advocate of that approach. The only condition I put on it that I'm immune.
Or when you're skipping town, or when you're speeding.
but
I get a free ticket.
traffic speed is a concern. They did do some existing analysis, and coming into Cohasset, right on the Situate line, cars are going 54 miles per hour,
Wow.
and on an average. So, I mean,
Oh,
these
yeah,
are
they're
areas that
whipping
need to
through
be
there.
looked
That's
at.
an average,
Right.
right?
There's a
It's an
35
85 percentile.
Yeah.
Stuart and Michael, if I might suggest, if you're going to put the draft up on the website, you might want to provide people with a deadline by when you need to get the information into you, leaving time for you then to get it into the state, and also make it easy for people. So put a contact there, whether it's Brian or Michael, but either an email link that people can just click on and an email comes up, and or
Presumably that would be Brian.
Correct.
just because you didn't have enough to do, Brian.
No, I'm wondering if we could, might set up a separate email, I'll ask Rob tomorrow.
That would be a great idea.
Maybe call it 3A study,
Yep,
comments, something like
great idea.
Do you guys have any comments that we could take down right now?
Well, I have one other,
And put them,
a 35-mile limit all the way along. Because
I agree with Martha.
it is from Situate to the Beechwood crossing, but it goes up and down. And I remember when I was on the Board of Selectmen years ago, we tried to get it down by where Avalon is. And they did traffic studies, and they said we didn't need it. And I remember Michael Sullivan was really upset about that, and I agreed with him. We tried to get it. But I think since you've had the study and they say it's problems, you could have it all the way along. And then people don't go up and down, and have police presence to make sure they're being implemented so they get used to it. And I think that's a real positive thing to do.
I haven't seen the report, so I don't feel like I should comment on it until I look it over, but, do you think we need one more public meeting, just to,
I don't know.
I mean, sometimes,
Can't
I don't
hurt.
know,
This is gonna be an ongoing thing.
yeah, and make sure that we notify everybody, because Michael and Brian might not get to every single business, but if we say there's one last public input meeting, X night, everybody's invited.
You could use this office if you wanted to put it on cable.
I'm also wondering if maybe on the November 5th meeting, if we could maybe just plan another 15 minutes or 30 minutes just for any final comments people have, and then also to get the selectmen's comments. That gives 2 weeks for everybody to do it. You have this in your
Where-
packet, it was in your packet a little while
About the
ago.
other meetings.
Um,
All
setting
of it,
up.
or just the top?
All of it, yeah. It was in 8.5 by
11
11, I think.
Okay.
Um,
I remember reading a memo, but I don't remember.
If we can fit that in, Mr. Chairman, at least that gives a deadline, and it also, filters all the comments back here through the Board of Selectmen to kind of close this out. Because,
If you just give us a deadline, we can just submit our suggestions to you,
Yeah.
just like everybody else.
Stuart, the summary of my comments is that in my limited knowledge of what's there's anytime you increase the number of entries and exits in a given roadway, you increase the magnitude of
That's right.
sudden application of the brakes, which is the opposite effect of running through the red light.
Kind of the dual use conundrum,
Yep.
right?
Like you, I sit at Pond Street on any given morning wondering if, I can sneak out just before someone's gonna clip the front end off.
Yeah.
Frankly, much of, I applaud your work to get this started, and I like you can see the problems. I have no idea what the answers are, and it would depend upon you and the engineers and so on to develop those. But the primary one we do have some control over is enforcement of existing law. So, for what it's worth, just monitoring the intersections and, adherence to light signals is a step in the right direction, so.
just one last comment, you mentioned Pond Street.
Yeah.
Pond Street actually also has significant high accidents rates to there. And part of it is the design of the intersection, but you also have generally less experienced drivers using Pond Street.
It's people running the light.
From the high schools.
Well, actually, the incidents that I'm witnessing have nothing to do with students, have nothing to do with young
No.
people.
They're all people
It's
going
commuter traffic.
55 miles an hour from Beechwood north in the morning.
Yeah, they take,
Right.
they,
And that light turns yellow and red, but they don't want to stop, so they don't.
yeah, no, they
So
treat,
they just go right through there, and, like I said, if you
think-
pulled out every time the light turned green, you would end up having
I
an
think when you come into Cohasset, there's a sign that says yellow lights mean speed up.
yeah, yeah, red lights are a serving suggestion.
Yeah,
So-
really.
So in any case, but I'll be happy to, once I actually review the entirety of it as well, I'll be happy to put it in writing, put whatever comments are.
Remember who your audience is. Your audience is
State
the professional
engineers.
engineers who are up there writing this report.
Okay,
Just keep, bear that in mind.
so I'll try to obfuscate as much as I can.
Right.
First
Draw pictures.
meeting we had,
People I know there, I knew all of them in there, because I
The
was involved
auditorium.
with MAPC.
Are you drinking?
almost all the
drink that
attendants
water.
were
I'm on that
businesses.
now.
Okay.
Right, and most all the comments we got were from, the business owners, who I believe is concerned as we all are. I mean, they didn't say, oh, no, you can't
Right.
do anything, this is great, because their businesses are impacted
Yep.
too, because they, people are, afraid to go.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And that's a problem, because one of the the issues the planning board is trying to tackle in balancing the various interests of the town in 3A is, one of the interests is to promote the core businesses on 3A and attracting more business and more investment to 3A to bolster the tax base. It's more than anecdotal that people are concerned about moving their business to Cohasset if they need a high volume of customers coming through a retail shop, if you will, because they're concerned about the ability of their customers to get in and out safely, and that people might be less attracted to shop here.
Well, the other dimension of that is if that's, a lot of that's either highway business or light industrial zone. So if a particular applicant comes and says, I want to do X in this piece of land, right? We have to consider that application in its entirety without any consideration of 3A. Right? 'Cause 3A is a state highway, and we actually tried with Stop and Shop gas station to put a condition on the approval of that they had to have some left-hand turn lanes, and they had to do some adjustment of the striping and stuff on 3A. Stop and Shop sued the town, right? And they won, right? Because the town can't put a condition on an applicant for that district that's dependent on the state doing something. So here we get all these incremental, applications, whether it's, Avalon or Toll Brothers or, what's the other one that went in there? The Auto Wash,
Yep.
right? We're powerless in either conditioning those or rejecting them because of
What the state
traffic
may or may not
concerns,
like.
right,
They
on the
may-
roads.
So there might be something we could consider
See,
in the
what-
zoning bylaws or something.
Well, when we have a corridor plan that's been established, this is the accepted plan, as part of mitigation for any projects coming in, you now have a plan for them to work towards, where Mass DOT will be supportive of. But I know we've gone over our 20 minutes. Mr. Chairman, if we would like to have the comments back by November 5th. If we
Yeah.
have a meeting here, that's fine. If not, that's okay too. But at least we have a deadline of trying to get comments back by November 5th from everybody. And we'll consolidate those and get those into one package up to Mass DOT.
Great. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming in.
you.
Yep.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you, Clark.
Lots to think about.
Okay, town manager updates.
Real quickly, just before I get into finance, in your packet, you have this building envelope consulting report.
Yeah.
This was part of the scope of work that was done by the Town Hall Study Committee. Kindly take a look at it before we meet next week with them. And it identifies a lot of the issues that we have here in Town Hall, just with the structure, the exterior envelope of the building, that would require, with contingency almost up at a high end up to $700,000 of repairs, just to fix the envelope of the building. As it relates now to the finance, I met with the chairman this morning, and he asked me to put together, in addition to my letter that's in your packet, kind of just an overview of our stabilization accounts, where they are, and what some of these funds would mean to the stabilization. Keep in mind that our financial management policies that you have approved and town meeting has approved has 3 items in there that are of significance, 4 actually. One is that our stabilization account will have 5% of our operating budget, our revenue coming into that. The second being that our capital stabilization and debt service will have up to 10% of our operating budget. The third being is that we will continue to tax to the Prop 2.5 levy limit until we get our financial house in order, meaning that we fund our unfunded liabilities And that's the policies that we've been following. I'm sorry, the fourth is that we need to develop an OPED plan, and we'll be having them come next week to talk about what the status of our OPED or other post-employment benefits are. That being said, the chart in front of you,
Michael, didn't we already arrange to have Brian Magner come in for HR and?
HR next week.
yes,
Well,
we've
how
got
come we
HR,
had-
OPED, and
Well,
we've
we
got,
can't have all that
all of
stuff.
that in one
Oh,
night?
that's an awful lot.
Another late night.
Well,
Well, I just thought that we were trying to focus on big issue things one at a time with the agenda. I'm sorry, Mr.
That's all right.
yeah.
We seem not to be following any of the things we said we were gonna follow in our goals and
Objective.
objectives meeting. That having been said, please continue.
okay. So what you have here, I'm going to start from the right and work our way over, is what you see is the balances as of June 30th, 2011 in some of our accounts. Again, in that year, we had a negative free cash number. Last year, moving forward, when we modified how the town was being managed financially, we had a $958,000 in free cash, and then, here's what the balances were at that time. As of June 30th of this year, we've been able to bring the balances of, and I'm going to go to the second item, our stabilization up to $1.2 million, and our capital stabilization at that point with a residual of $237,000. Now, after come July 1st, we also transferred additional funds into there from what town meeting had approved in April. And the combination of that with the proposed transfers here for a fall special town meeting would mean that our stabilization account would have been met at the $2 million number, which in essence is about 1.5% actually above what our 5% allocation would be. So that one will be met with this transfer. The second has to do with capital stabilization, which is also tied into our debt service which is back on the sheet here. We'll still be short on that one by 36%, 36.49%, which will be below what our financial management policies will require us to do at the $1.4 million. Our OPED, that'll go up to $567,000. The next five items are enterprise funds, and then putting some money into our facility stabilization fund. So this, at the end of, with these transfers, that's what our balance sheet will look like as it relates to our stabilization accounts. And I have Mary still here, and Mary, thank you for being here, and Paula, in case there's any questions with them as it relates to the memo that we put together dated October 18th that talks about the need for transferring the $600,000 so that is recognized this year in our tax levy, and as well as what the options are. And I want to focus again on the options that is recommended, which is to put the additional $600,000 into the FY, so it's recognized in FY14 and transferred into our capital stabilization fund, and also that the free cash that we have is also transferred into those accounts, which allows us to potentially gain a greater interest rate because it's in our trust fund or our stabilization fund. Again, we were very successful last year on what our returns were. There's no guarantee that we'll have the same returns this year, but certainly it's greater than a money market and a checking account. The second option, in order so that we don't lose the $600,000, would be for us to arbitrarily reduce our local estimated receipts, which we know what they are. We anticipate what they're going to be. They're going to come in within a few percentage points from what they were last year because they're pretty finite.
We didn't get a spreadsheet. Yeah, that's what he's calling a spreadsheet. That's not a spreadsheet.
So, in any case, that would be a end around, if you will, of being able to put that money into a future free cash item by lowering artificially the receipts. We have talked to DOR, and they would allow us to do this, provided that the artificial lowering of the free cash was done as an actual vote, so it was transparent and everyone knew what we were doing. The downside to that is that $600,000 is not available until the fall of next year, after free cash is certified and then another special town meeting has been held. And you also lose the ability of putting that into a higher interest rate over time. Item number 2 under B is the same issue, with putting the $1.27 million into a more designated fund, which really goes back to the spreadsheet that you have on the 3rd page, which I think best articulates what the proposal is here. Is for the top items is to transfer that $600,000 to realize the $600,000 this year in our tax levy, and to transfer that into a stabilization account. And then the lower items is to transfer those into town stabilization, capital stabilization, the facilities, or the OPED trust fund, and just runs what was collected from an interest rate in those accounts from last year. Mary, anything else you want to add to this, or Paula?
Well, the most significant too is that S&P, the rating with S&P.
Mary, people at home can't hear you. You have to come forward. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's right.
I'm just bossy tonight.
The other issue, besides, losing some interest, earnings, is S&P, our bond rating. If we don't look, if we have financial management policies and it doesn't look like we're taking them seriously, it's gonna go against our rating.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Well, I think we were talking about, a special in January, February, March, so I'm a little bit unclear why we had to rush one in December. And I'm being told it was the recap sheet has to be done to set the tax rate.
Yeah, we have to set
But
the
I
tax.
understood also you can have excess revenues on that, so you could add those revenues on, still keep the expenses and tax at 2.5.
I can lower the estimated receipts and
Yeah.
therefore still levy the limit. I think with the point here in item B, we'd still be losing some interest because we wouldn't actually be tucking it, appropriating it into
Well,
OPEB
say we
or
did it
input
4
into
weeks
it.
later in January, we lose
Well, you
4
wouldn't be
weeks.
doing it 4 weeks in January, because that money wouldn't become available to appropriate again. No, you're right, your free cash would be, but that
Yeah.
600,000 would not be until after
It's certified.
certification,
Yeah.
after July 1st, probably not till September of next year.
Well, I think it's important,
But you're right, the other 1.3 could be appropriated.
but I think it's important to delay it till January, because we're in the process of hiring a new
Well,
town
what's the moot
manager
point
or interviewing and hiring one in November, and I think this would tie his hands. He'd want to look into it, and I don't think it's a good, you have a new guy come in and everything is tied up.
All I'm gonna comment
Yeah.
on is just the
Yeah,
numbers.
well,
That's
you have good reasons.
the numbers in the S&P, but the rest of it, your
Yeah.
decision.
Advisory committee.
Go ahead.
Peter Pescatori, Advisory Committee. I'd just like to ask a question of Treasurer Mary, in if there are any restrictions to moving free cash into higher yielding investment venues.
There you go, I don't believe there is, or certain trust funds can be and certain ones can't.
Depending on the type of funds it is, it'll depend on where you can put it. Something that's just strictly free cash, or, general fund, something you're gonna wanna have access to sooner rather than later. You would keep something like that into maybe money market or maybe into some shorter term CDs. But
Well,
when
I
you get
would-
into trust funds, when you start talking about things like OPEB and you start thinking about longer-term stability or capital stabilization. If you've got a long-term plan, and you can put some money away for a longer period of time. You know, we're getting about 6% right now through that kind of a fund, but OPEB is even higher. It's over at 14. So if you make a decision on that, we can move on that and follow the financial policies. And I guess I don't see how that's tying hands. I think that's following the policy that's the set, and then that's up to you, not the time managers, to set
I
the
had a
policy.
question about the
Well, I have-
14, because I found the CAFA ending year 2012 for the last 3 years on PRIT, was it like 9.45%, so I'm not clear where the 14.3 is coming
So
from.
that was
It
a
is.
3-year thing, we were talking a 1 year.
Well, which is more realistic of how it's gonna perform
think-
over time?
I think I think if you're going to be conservative in your approach, you would look at a long-term investment from the perspective of lower numbers, rather than projecting them for higher.
Right, because the legislative mandate is 8.5%, so it's slightly above that at 9.45. But I mean, a 3-year chunk that's certified is more accurate than,
Compounding at 9.5% is pretty impressive. Last
Yeah.
year's returns at 14% probably reflected some very strong market conditions, which may not be repeated. Having said that, I think the larger point that Paula is making is that we voted, and the town voted. More importantly, the town voted to adhere to the policies, and from that perspective alone, and tying that back to what our finance director was pointing out, it does make a difference. We are reviewed and viewed. S&P is one of those entities, and you had made the point, I think, at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, that we aren't thinking of bonding anything. Well, actually, interestingly enough, that S&P rating, you may remember, was.
well, I'm always open to be
well,
educated, I
No, no,
believe you, yeah.
Hear me out,
yeah.
hear me out. That S&P rating was reviewed twice over a 12-month period for the purpose of us refinancing, which
Yeah.
in turn saved us, was it 1.3 million?
1.75.
1.75 million in interest over that financing, and we didn't extend anything. We
Yeah.
just lived within our financing rate. So it is an important piece from from the perspective of how we're viewed. It's much more important that we're simply following through and doing what we said we're going to do.
Right.
That's huge with S&P.
Well, okay,
S&P,
so,
yeah.
I agree, but where I'm not seeing is, it seems like we're chasing interest rates here, which is fine, but I mean, I've got a spreadsheet here that shows we've got, over 20 years, a lost $5 million by not putting more into OPEB. This is discussion that needs to be had by the whole town. We've never really discussed this breakout, where this is being allocated. Does this make the most sense of all the information? Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, the point I was going to make is that if there's no prohibition on moving the money around within parameters, within trust funds or whatever, the 1.27 of free cash from fiscal year 2013 is excess funds, because we're talking about 600,000 in 14 already. Why wouldn't we just move that into a higher yielding venue already, immediately, and disposition it whenever, if you have a special town meeting or whatever? My point is, you don't have to wait for a town meeting to get into the higher yield. For
To
those
allocate the
funds.
various stabilization
Well,
funds,
you
yeah.
don't even have to allocate them, because
Yeah.
only town meeting can allocate them.
That's right.
Right,
that's
so
right.
the question
So,
is,
but you
why?
can get the higher yield if
Yeah.
you just move the money over, because that money by
So-
definition is excess.
So we don't need to go to special town meeting to put those into higher interest earning accounts, is what Peter's saying. Is that correct?
I think we do.
I
mean,
think
you do.
there's only certain funds
But I'm
that
not
can
talking
put into
about
the higher
the
yield.
trust funds or,
Well,
Well,
that's
now,
what,
there's-
that's what the treasurer is allowed to do, is to put trust
Right.
funds into higher yield. She's not allowed to put
Paula,
General
just-
funds.
just the general funds.
Paula,
into
this is,
higher
as
yield.
general funds and free cash,
You
is
can
this,
put them in a CD or a money market, but you can't.
It's
as
about
general,
this- this-
general funds and free cash, is this managed under a cash investment policy?
I don't think we have a written,
No, we don't have.
it's not written at this point. It's just general,
She's got-
regulations and laws. Being the treasurer, it comes down to safety, liquidity, and yield. You gotta
Yeah,
keep the money safe.
The
so there's
slide
only-
principle,
Right.
right.
the liquidity, you gotta make sure you're gonna be able to pay the bills. General fund is to make payroll.
Right.
And to pay your debt, so you have to make sure you have enough of that available.
Right.
But then when you have, then you worry about yield, and that's, you're more focused on that when you get into trust funds that you're not gonna spend right away, because you have to give lead time. You can't just go in and take the money out right away out of these funds, because it disrupts, you don't wanna sell Coca-Cola just,
That's
on a
right.
whim. You're
right.
looking at something. So that's what you have to kind of plan on. So it all ties into having a good capital plan, so you know when those kinds of cash flows are going, know when grants are coming and going, and when expenditures are coming, kind of pulling all that together and understanding that, and then knowing how much of it can I tie up, because I know I'm not gonna need it for my liquidity needs. And then you take it from there, and then you maximize the yield.
Right. Now, I'm asking the question because typically you would find that if it were sitting in a general fund, if it were sitting as free cash, and unallocated, it would live by the SLI principle, and therefore would fall under a cash investment policy, which would restrict where it could go for the purposes of safety, liquidity, and third-place
Right.
yield.
It would CDs, money markets, that kind of.
Not
that
even
kind of
CDs,
savings.
no liquidity, you know?
Right, yeah,
So-
you have to have
Well,
this,
yeah.
Right.
a year.
So, my point in all of this is that, unless the town votes to apply the funds to longer-term purposes, it would seem to be reasonable to assume that as the treasurer of the town, you would not want to tie up funds that would expose them to the potential of volatility of their,
Right, I wouldn't be
of their
able to.
value. Right?
I would not be able to, no.
Right, okay, thanks.
The other point that I want to make is we're now talking about the free cash component, but the primary objective is to realize the $600,000 and be able to be able to use that at a special town, at an annual town meeting in the future. And by allocating these funds to stabilizations, or with the exception of the trust fund, because once it goes to the OPEB trust fund, you can't take it out. That money can be removed if there's an issue in the future that your future town manager wants to take it out with the approval of town meeting. It just allows us to better manage our funds as we go forward by putting them into stabilization accounts. But again, most importantly, it's to recognize this $600,000, because without having fuzzy math and changing your local receipts, we will lose that $600,000 this year. This fiscal year, we will not be able to.
There's nothing wrong with fuzzy math on the recap sheet.
Nothing.
You will not
As-
be
as
able
long
to
as we're
realize.
maximizing our tax levy.
You will
That's
not,
right.
but you can't maximize the tax levy if you don't do the fuzzy math. And my point being is that $600,000 will go away this year. You'll be able to add it back in the 2015 budget, but that's what we're trying to explain time and time again, is that $600,000 is key because it's a unique situation that we're in, and following our financial management policies, we need to take advantage of that, we need to secure it in the appropriate funds, and that's what we need town meeting to do.
I think it's important to recognize as well that once in a stabilization fund, it goes in with the vote of town meeting, it comes out with the vote of town meeting, and for the applied purpose of those funds. I don't know that could be any more clear to anybody taking over the role of town manager. And as a matter of fact, capital stabilization is the duty of the town manager to set up that plan. So it actually turns around and says who's ever coming into that seat has a visible budget far in excess of anything that we have ever had. And by the way, we have needs far in excess of anything that we've ever had as well. Coming into this town with a balance in an OPEB stabilization fund is shocking. I was talking with some friends of mine who are selectmen in Foxborough. They don't even have a stabilization fund for OPEB, and their liability is much larger than ours. So from that perspective, far from tying a future manager's hands, you're actually handing a future manager a relatively well-stuffed wallet.
Right, I just want to make one point about the 600,000. It's 427,000 increase on the cherry sheet, which is fine, but it's not real until the very last check comes in at the full amount. The state has rolled back that in the past. We could be going back in to take it out of stabilization because it wasn't realized. And the other is an increase in fees that adds up to the 427 plus the increase in fees to be exactly 600,000. But that too also is future payments down the road that may or may not come in.
Right, it's an estimate.
It's an estimate.
And we do have to use the state estimate.
So that-
We are gonna pay out those assessments, they're not gonna change those on us, the state assessments.
Okay.
And the cherry
But-
sheet, yes, you're right, they can do those cuts like they did one other year,
Yeah.
but
But-
those are the numbers I do have to use on the.
But on the
those
recap
are
sheet,
inflated.
can't you put more excess in other words, this could have just gone in as excess revenue, keep the budget the same, and still tax at the full levy
Right,
without
by
a special
lowering
town
estimated
meeting.
That's
receipts,
right.
local receipts, I
Without a special town meeting.
can do that.
Well, that's
Okay.
what I was
We
gonna
were
ask,
told
exactly.
that we had to have a special town meeting to do that. Now we're
No,
being told.
no, that's not
Well,
correct. At
I
the
don't
last
believe
meeting,
so that what I need, what DOR recommended is that, to be sure that it's clear that the selectmen understand that if I'm going to lower the 600,000 local receipts
Yeah.
by 600,000, that means you are levying to your limit. He just wanted to be assured that you.
Which
knew.
is our intention to do. Yeah,
And
we
that's
understand
fine.
that, yeah.
That's what I need clear.
But-
Now,
Yeah.
you don't need to go to a special town meeting to do that. But again, what
Right.
we're trying to say is it's more fiscally responsible to appropriate that 600,000 and actually put it towards your OPEB or your capital stabilization.
because
or
two
any other
things,
thing.
you won't have access to that money for a year, because it has to come out in free cash in the fall of the following year. And the second is, let's talk some real numbers here. This past year in local receipts, we collected $3.87 million. Right now, in our 5-year forecast that was approved at town meeting, we have $3.4 million in there. We lower that another $600,000, it's not realistic. And that's the point of the fuzzy math, is you're putting in numbers that you know are not realistic. The most prudent and financial thing to do with following our financial management policies is to appropriate the money so that you realize it this year and you're able to secure the higher interest rate.
Okay, so what I'm not clear about is we're designing a budget that should have 3 to 5% going into free cash at the close of the fiscal year on June 30th every year. So, which means we're gonna be getting $1.3 million each year
Not sure
going to
about
free
that.
cash. That's what Mike told me this morning at breakfast.
What I said to you this morning was that DOR recommends that you have 3 to 5% in your free cash at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's through good management, where you're able to have funds returned and so on and so forth. I
So
mean,
the
if you
question
look
is,
at
how
our,
do we
no,
get
let me
that
finish
into
it.
a high interest
If
rate
you, if you
without a
look at
special?
where we've come from, in the sheet that I provided you with all the stabilizations, 2 years ago, we had a negative free cash number. We were in the minus. We're finally, the first time, if not ever, in this town, have met our financial targets. And I think that
Mike,
this
we've met
team has
targets
been.
before. It's not the first time
No,
ever.
it's not. And furthermore, you raised all the fees, and that brought in more money.
So can we like get down to the practical
Yeah,
reality?
yeah, let's
you
do
know?
that.
Practical reality is, and I haven't seen the petition, but there's a petition that's forcing us to have a special town meeting, right?
Right.
I don't know if there's,
Nothing forces you, it's your prerogative.
No,
No,
it's
it's
a state
that's
law.
not true.
No.
State
It's
law.
a-
there's a
It's a
citizens
bylaw.
petition. that-
We're
there's-
we're
It's a
having a
citizen
special.
petition.
There's a special town meeting, so, right, are there numbers in that petition?
Tracy, do you have it? I know we just.
You know, is there
That
assigned numbers?
concerns me because we're at a policy level of deciding where those numbers are, and now we're being told what they are.
Well, because we haven't had the conversation, but what I would suggest is that maybe we have a conversation, because we could put in an article and flesh it out if we have if we think we have better numbers. I mean, what
No,
else?
No.
Yeah,
Well, Mr.
that's a possibility. Go ahead.
Chair, this is jumping off a little bit, but Diane, to what you said, I took a little time this past weekend, and I thought about how we arrived at where we're at. I'm not gonna argue the figures right now, because we do have the citizens petition, we're going to have a special town meeting, and so that really is a moot issue. But I always look at process and procedure, and I looked at how did we get to this place? And how did we end up here where we're finding out at the last minute that we need to have a special town meeting? Back in May, we were advised, Mary, you advised us that there was going to be a significant surplus of nearly $1 million. No mention of we need to have a special town meeting. In July, DOR certified the 1.2 million. Nobody told us we needed to have a special town meeting. August, the acting town manager issued a memo. No mention that we needed to have a special town meeting. In late summer, early fall, the schools determined they didn't need a special town meeting. In early September, the acting town manager issued basically the same memo as in August, still not mentioning the need for a special town meeting. In mid-September, the Board of Selectmen and ATM tentatively agreed there was no need for a special town meeting. The chair asked the acting town manager to check with the finance team. Then all of a sudden, it all breaks loose that, we have to have this. Here are all the reasons why we have to have it. We can't set the levy. We have all this money this interest that we're gonna lose because we're not gonna be able to manage our money right. We're not following our fiscal procedures. So as a selectman, and this is my first budget process in over 2 years, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, why wasn't I told this?
Free cash wasn't certified until the end of August, so I don't.
Well, in
But
September,
that's-
they said no.
But it's August. I mean, if we'd had this discussion in
Well,
August.
I never said that we had to have one to set the tax rate. My only question was, I knew we had a 600,000 levy capacity.
Well, then
So
I must have
how was it to
misheard you,
be handled?
Mary, because that's what I was hearing.
And let me, because
Well,
I don't want, I don't want to miss the facts.
Anybody.
I need to add some clarity to this, Karen, because it's really important that we let the public understand what the facts are. When we put together the FY14 budget that we're in right now, that was designed so that we wouldn't need a special town meeting as in past years where we needed to have free cash be used to balance the budget. Let me finish, please.
No,
Or we
because you
needed free,
interrupted me.
or we needed the free cash to actually do some last minute things that had to happen. Our budget was set, we could operate. What happened is after our budget was approved, the state came back and gave us a lot more money than we anticipated. We didn't know about that until September, until it was signed, until July, until it was signed by the governor. And at that point,
So why didn't we have this discussion in July? This is what I'm saying. I understand everything that you're saying.
because then you have to get into the recap. And that's what Mary's trying to explain is just because you have the governor's budget, hear me out, that then when you start to put the free cash together, the balance sheets, that all happened this year earlier than ever. We did this in September.
But still,
So-
the conversation should have
But in
taken place
September-
saying, if all these things happen, because you told me last week, you told us, that you're the financial experts. And I'll agree, I'm not the financial expert. However,
Well, okay, then
I think that if somebody had alerted the board to the fact that there might be a necessity because of certain circumstances that were going to eventuate and had already eventuated, that we would have had this conversation earlier, that we would not have subjected the townspeople to another, unpleasant discussion and disagreement with the Board of Selectmen and the town manager. Because it's process, it's procedure, it's communication. And
if
that's
you
the
go back
message
and
I
look
have
in the
here tonight.
minutes,
I did go back and look at
stated
the minutes.
where we needed to do some additional analysis. The moment that additional analysis was completed, after we did our recap sheet, our balance sheet, had all the state numbers in, I came to the next meeting and recommended to the Board of Selectmen that we need to have a special town meeting, and here's why.
No, you
What
didn't.
happened? What happened was, oh no, we don't want to have a special town meeting now. So
September 17th, I specifically asked, and you said we didn't need it, and that's documented.
no, what I said was I needed to go back because we were
No,
just
you
completing
didn't.
all the documents
No,
and
you
double
didn't.
check with everybody. I
School
did.
said no, and you said no. There's just a few things. We don't need it. We can do it later. That's what you said.
That's not true.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
is there,
It is.
is there a point here? Because this is the only group that I know of that can argue over financial success.
Well-
I'm
Steve,
still,
I'm not arguing over financial success. I'm not
I've
even
got the
arguing.
floor for
I'm
the moment,
I'm
really,
pointing
just for the
out-
moment. That's the only thing I'm asking. Okay, and then I'll go back into my shell.
Hardly.
If there's a point here, let's make it. If it's just to beat up our one employee publicly, then go ahead. But really, do we have to do this? Do we really need to carp publicly about who said, what said? Hey, look, the fact of the matter is, there's money here. The town, apparently in a very short period of time, 398 townspeople said, you know what, enough. Do what we told you to do. So the only request that I have is that we give consideration, if there is another purpose for these funds, then let's make that
That
recommendation.
was not the purpose of my
Oh,
statement.
that's
No,
a
that's
nice
the purpose
segue
of
into my
mine.
spreadsheet here.
That's the,
I just want to make a couple of points here. If you go to the very bottom line where it says 9.45 in the green at the bottom.
You have an extra copy?
Yeah, right here.
and I'm handing other big pieces of paper to you.
9.
It's right there, yeah.
Oh, that one, okay.
Okay, so, I mean, this is just say, this is one discussion we have not had. This would just be, I mean, this is sliding the OPEB trust fund to the opposite end and saying, hey, let's treat this as a gift horse, and we'll just put 1.6 million in to that trust fund that is, we have a current liability of 32 million bucks for. Now, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I'm just putting this out for discussion. That ends up being worth 9.7 million bucks at the end of 20 years there down the end.
I think it's great. This is the kind
Okay.
of conversation I want to have, but I don't know that.
But
you
I'm
know.
just, okay, so if you
But
go
at-
to the
at
yellow one,
10:45.
where
This is not the time to have it.
So I mean, here,
She
there's
had
a
it
big,
last week.
there's a big thing, lost interest opportunity on Mike's spreadsheet. Well, I have a lost interest opportunity at the very bottom line of the spreadsheet, coming to $5.7 million over 20 years by doing what I'm recommending as a devil's advocate versus what Mike's doing. And yet, am I saying that, we're violating the financial guidelines we've set in the town, or am I calling people fiscally irresponsible like last week? No, I'm just saying, this is a big discussion that we haven't had yet on how these monies get allocated across stabilization funds with different interest rates. And we've never even come to that discussion, yet we've got a petition here that basically is telling us how we're gonna do it. So I don't know how we get to how we're gonna do it without the town having ever had the discussion on the allocation.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is a great topic for conversation. I really do. I think this is fantastic. Now,
And that
is
was
it
my
is it
point, Steve, as
is
to
it
why we didn't have it
responsible
earlier.
to put it all in the OPEB trust fund? Probably
No,
not. Well, no.
No,
Here-
but I'm
here-
saying there's a sliding thing there we can
fair,
discuss.
no,
what's
fair
appropriate.
enough.
Yeah.
But having said that,
Yeah,
okay, that's a point of discussion. We know we've got 45 days
yeah,
to develop a plan
right,
that would be considered counter to this one,
yeah,
right? Fair enough.
okay.
Then
all
let's
right.
take it on.
Excellent, so I just wanted to
Okay.
make that point.
And where did all these numbers come from?
Well,
Like the
I
study.
made some assumptions. The 9.45 is the 3-year actual CAFA on the fund that's being used there versus the 14.3, which I guess is a 1-year return. And I'm not sure where the 6.19 return was coming from. I assumed, since the other one was high, that I could chop it down to 3. But at least Mike's proposal and my proposal have the same percentages in there, and they would fluctuate when we actually get the actual return. So I guess my question is, where is the 6.19 coming from? Is that a CD?
No, that is actually coming from a managed portfolio
Oh,
at
okay.
a local bank. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
little bit more, like stabilization, capital stabilization kind of things going on
Yeah.
there. Some of those higher numbers are retirement benefits, which is real long-term,
Yeah.
so this is kind of like medium.
So what are the restrictions on, do you have the authorization to put money just sitting around into that, or does that require a special town meeting?
It's not money
discussed
just
that.
sitting around, it's things like stabilization, capital stabilization. some
Previously
debt
allocated
service,
stabilization account.
all the
Yeah.
scholarships, trust funds, cemetery trust funds, that kind of stuff, that's not a huge amount of activity,
Okay,
that type of thing.
very good.
I'm glad to see someone else looking at the OPED numbers, because this has been around for a while. And, there's certainly different ways of investing the money. But right now, the financial management policies that have been established is what the other numbers are based upon. If it comes back after you have the OPED commission come back and you develop an OPED plan, and the OPED plan says to do this with any additional free cash in the future, great. This is a great thing to do.
Well,
But
yeah.
until that happens, I'm not going to arbitrarily change the policies because I have to follow those until you change them.
Well, what I'm not seeing in the policy is where it says to allocate, the equivalent of 250,000 OPEB versus the other stuff. I mean, I'm not seeing a percentage allocation in the policy
Actually,
saying,
OPEB isn't addressed in the policy.
Right.
okay,
Period.
so why is it I mean, if it's not addressed in the policy, then.
It ought to be.
Why is it? Absolutely, it should, but it's like Mike's allocation is in the policy, but my alternative one just isn't.
Well, keep in mind, the policy was
But it's
adopted
making
by
an
town.
extra $5 million in 20 years.
Fair enough, you can make that argument, but
Yeah.
the policy was adopted by town meeting,
Okay,
okay? So it is the marching orders that we go with.
but I'm saying a
Right.
policy isn't specific enough to tell you or anybody what percentage or dollars to break that into.
But it is.
Well, you have
The-
to
the-
show me,
yeah,
because
the
I'm
policies-
missing it.
For
You'll
instance,
have to show me where it says
the
that.
policies show that, we're shooting for I think it's 2.1 million in, general stabilization.
Yeah.
10% of
Okay,
operating and capital.
filling the pots,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
what.
And that's where these numbers are coming
So
from.
that was the argument, well, not the argument. Mike and I had a nice discussion this morning about the different pots, and I was saying, look, I'm just like a businessman's frame, and why aren't I filling the pot that's getting the 9.5% first? And then worry, and I know there's risk trade-off.
Oh, no,
and
it's not,
security of
it's not,
principle,
it's not
but-
an investment question in that case.
Yeah.
The basic reason for it is OPEB liability comes from a structure, not just the funds that are there.
Yeah.
But it's the structure that gets it. So in other words, you can invest this money until the cows come home, and you're not gonna meet that liability by your investments. You're only gonna meet that liability by a combination of investments and structural change.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay?
right.
And with all of that, we can't make an intelligent decision on that yet without the analysis of the OPEB committee,
Right.
right? Now, move along for just a second and take on capital,
Yeah.
all right? Remember that the Capital Stabilization Fund has its own debt service,
Yeah.
right? You don't fund Capital Stabilization Fund, and pretty soon, we're gonna be missing payments.
Well, not if the payments are budgeted. I mean,
No,
right now. what
hold
we-
on, no, I'll address that.
Mike and I talked about this morning. What
Take-
that is you're funding payments going into a fund that then go out of the fund to make the payments.
Hear me out. We keep, and you may remember this policy, Peter, we keep a fund balance of 1.15 times next year's liabilities, which include principal and interest. You don't fund it, you go into deficit in 2 years.
But you've got a structure that funds it.
We've
No
got a
one's
structure.
proposing not
we've-
to fund it.
No, my point here is that when you're looking at this is the reflection of those policies. That is my point.
But my point here is when we look at this fund projections here, what we don't see is what the liability against each of those funds is. And you're saying that, the capitalization, an annual liability would be not 1.5 against that. But yeah, an OPEB, we've got a $32 million liability. So it's not like it's a given that if we throw $1 million cash into it at the 9.45%, that it's, we're nowhere near getting close to fully funding it.
I can tell you that Capital Stabilization Fund, as of June 30, 13 balance, had, $237,000 in it, about $165,000 in principal and interest liability in the coming year. And that principal and
How
interest
much?
165,000.
Okay.
That $165,000 liability then declines for another 7 years unless new borrowings are put against it. I can tell you that the OPEB liability is $38 million, but no one can tell you when. It's $38 million over a period of time which is estimated for a life cycle of the population, which not only has people in it, but people entering in it
Yeah.
and people that
Exiting.
will exit it.
Which I think is a fine discussion. If we're like 70% funded in that fund, like, do we keep going or not? But we're like zero.
No, we are like zero.
So,
but
you
we-
know,
but
you know,
it's- but
going
it's-
to,
We
going
can't
to
even
4 or
meet our
5% into that fund
it's-
is smart.
it
When
is
you
a-
can get a high return.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but as I said, you can take every dollar here.
Yeah.
We can allocate
I'm
every.
not proposing that.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no, no, no.
using
Here-
as
here-
devil's advocate here.
hear me out.
We're
We-
chasing interest rates with this. This last week, we're chasing interest rates solely was the only thing.
No, that's
And we're
not. no, it
fiscally
wasn't.
irresponsible.
It was.
These 3 here, we're
$600,000.
fiscally irresponsible because we weren't chasing interest rates with everybody else.
That.
So now how come everybody's not chasing
But
interest rates
Fred, that wasn't
with
what
this?
was said. Let's be clear. Let's not make, let's focus on the facts of the last meeting. The facts of the last meeting in the other memo was the focus on the levy of the $600,000. That was the primary
Which
purpose.
we just heard tonight, we don't need a special to do that.
I made it.
No,
on the
what you
recap
heard,
sheet.
no, you're mixing words again. What you heard tonight, if you don't want to realize that money in this fiscal year, if you have no desire to have
Okay,
this at annual town
just so
meeting,
people know
if
what
you
that
want to
means.
allow that to occur
Yeah.
and not touch that money until the fall of next year, then yes, you can do the fuzzy math and do
So worst
that.
case scenario, it goes to free cash on July 1st, and we're in the same situation we are now. We
No,
need
it
to go
goes
to a
to
special to allocate the
to
free
the fall
cash.
of 2000.
Well, you know, maybe we should look at state legislation that lets us to say, hey, let's just take the free cash and put half of it in OPEB and half in this other stabilization till we get to a special, instead of having to, we gotta have a special to allocate this.
Well, that question's already been answered.
Situate has an article that we always levy to the limit, and the difference between what we need for our budget and what we can levy to the limit, so any excess levy capacity automatically goes to the stabilization fund.
Is that a
We have
bylaw or?
We have a vote at
It's an
town,
article.
every town meeting, we have an article with no
That's
dollar
great.
amount. It has no dollar amount, but it basically, that's what it says, whatever the difference is between.
So if you don't
And
need
you
a
and I
special
talked
for
about
another
this
reason, this just funds it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, maybe we should do that.
yeah.
But that's for
I'm all
next year.
for that.
Yeah, and we talked about that this
Yeah,
morning.
we did.
And that's something we can put into the annual budget, but that doesn't solve the $600,000 excess revenue that we have this year, which is a good thing.
Well, if we had that, it would though, right?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
It would definitely have solved it, we're just
But we don't have that now.
right there.
We don't have that at annual town meeting.
Okay. Well, I think it's a moot point. We're going to a special town meeting whether we want to or not.
That's
So,
right.
let's make the best of it.
Exactly.
So we need to set a date?
Well,
Yeah, let's set a date.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on to setting a date, it's worthwhile to define a time on the agenda in the
Yeah.
next couple of weeks to talk about this. Your financial review. Because if you're going to special town meeting and the petition is clear,
Yeah.
okay? But you have, or you would like to promote a different allocation of those funds, set some time aside to do it.
That's what I think we need to do.
Well,
I mean,
Yeah.
look, if this is
Well,
that
here's
fundamentally
here's
important,
my
then we
point.
can move some stuff off the agenda.
traditionally, the way we operate in Cohasset is we try to build consensus within the government of where something like this goes, right? Which we still can try to do, but in one sense, we're being forced to accept the town manager's recommendations because it's already into.
I think
I
what
think
this
these are
does.
all his recommendations that
Yeah, I
have
think-
made their way into the petition.
Well, I think it's very clear that what has happened is that 400 people in a short period of time has said, would you please follow our direction with regard to handling our finances? Now, if we have a proposal as a board that is different from this,
Yeah.
then I think it needs to be developed and aired. The
Okay.
town is coming together to consider this,
Yeah.
not to vote that, to consider that. So as a result, if you want the townspeople to have a different option, then let's work on developing that different option.
Well,
Agree.
we can discuss amongst the advisory and capital and selectmen and other boards where we want.
I think you need to
what we
include
wanna
OPEB in
recommend.
it.
Come up with as an article has to come before advisory.
Yeah. Okay, so,
So the December 6th is the 45-day.
December 5th, I think, is the 45 days.
so you must have it by then.
Well, there are,
December 6th, you're correct, December
Yeah.
6th.
so December 6th
And the earliest is,
is a Friday. I would prefer to have it on a Saturday so that more people are able to come.
I don't think we have a Saturday because of where Thanksgiving
Where is
falls.
Thanksgiving?
It's the
28th.
28th. So the week, kind of the 22nd and the
oh, and
29th would be.
Hanukkah is in there,
Yep, same time. Starts Thanksgiving, right? Does it start Thanksgiving or?
I wrote it down, I think it ends on the 5th. Yeah, Hanukkah ends on the 5th.
Well, if you have to have it on a day, I'd rather have it on a Friday. If you can't have it on a Saturday because it's near a weekend and people might be able to come. But I don't like people being disenfranchised by not having in the day. You're disenfranchising the elderly people who like to come to the town meeting. And this is not what government should be. It should be for all the people and not just a few.
I mean, we
So
have-
what do you
we have-
propose, Martha?
Well, I'd like to go one day over the 7th, even if it's beyond the,
You can't.
We can't.
can't.
State law.
And, well, you could do
It's
that.
a
You can,
bylaw.
yes, you could. You could open the meeting on
Yeah, it's our bylaw.
Oh, open it and then close it and go to the other one?
and you could open and close it and go over to Saturday. You can do that. It's been done before.
I mean, we've had.
Well, you have to have a quorum, you have to have a quorum, and then you have to have everybody agree to just leave and come back at the night of the date, certain.
Yeah.
And our
Yeah.
quorum's 100, right?
It's
You're
just
gonna get
100.
people there, right?
It's just 100.
I mean, we've had good luck with the last couple
Yeah,
of
we've had good
town
luck.
meetings
Yeah,
with the
we have.
attendance on
But I think that would be a better day.
on Monday evenings. What day would be better?
If we could have a quorum on Friday and then adjourn till Saturday and have it on
You're
Saturday.
never gonna get a quorum on a Friday. I'm
Well,
afraid. I can't make it that Saturday.
well,
I have work obligations at Holt's.
Agnes has got her hand up. She may have a suggestion.
While you're sorting out the date, I have one lingering question. Could I ask it of you about this discussion? Agnes McCann, 104 Don Street. I'm pretty sure what I understand now is that we could have set the tax rate without a special town meeting.
Correct.
But we're now gonna have one because there's a petition. And that there is a financial policy about setting aside a certain percentage, which I remember from 2012, I think. But doesn't that percentage and your obligation to do it, is there a deadline on that?
No,
December
no,
deadline?
Oh,
there's
it's a
no
goal.
deadline.
You can do that you can do that,
Anytime.
you can do that anytime within the fiscal year.
Mhm.
Correct.
That's
So
right.
You could have done that
Mhm.
after the tax rate was set.
And you could have had
I'm glad I understand that now.
Well, you
Because
couldn't move the funds after the tax rate, so
No,
you
it-
couldn't raise those funds after.
Not talking about moving them. Talking about what I understood after the last meeting, which was completely different, that we had to have a special town meeting to set the tax rate. I'm sure a lot of people thought that after the last meeting, because it was said several times. And I don't suppose maybe people,
I don't think they understood
were
this whole.
scared by that into wanting a special town meeting.
What she just said, though, that was consistent, is you couldn't raise the funds after town meeting. That's the piece that was absent in your dialogue. Absent.
You couldn't access those funds
But-
at
I
another
addressed
time.
that because it didn't matter.
Well, we could have had a special if we'd had a special in the early,
Regular.
Date.
early months.
I'm afraid
Or
we're
we could have
somewhat
had a
stuck
special
with the
within the
dates
annual.
you have
and
in
then we
front
would
of
have
us.
been-
Especially the annual, you still
Yeah.
wouldn't have that.
Yeah, we've got it,
But
we've
you
got
We
it
still-
don't need
slot.
it. The point
you
is,
know.
we don't need it.
What I'm not clear is when is
You
the
know, I mean,
first
it's been-
earliest date
we
we can
have-
have it?
So much money, we're lucky.
I don't know.
Well,
And we need to look at why we
The
have all the
latest
money
is
that-
45 days, so when is the earliest?
It doesn't say.
No,
You need-
you
you
get
need
certain,
warrant
date-
articles.
you got,
You need
you gotta
four-
mail the warrant and you
Yeah,
gotta
but you
open it.
need
and-
40
yeah.
Well, the
You
warrant's
need
gotta
four-
be 2 weeks before.
We gotta open it, then we gotta,
Yeah, you could do all kinds of stuff.
we haven't done officially, have we?
Well, if the only article on the warrant is the citizens petition, we could open and close it and print the warrant tomorrow.
You have to leave it open for 7 days for other
7,
articles
you need
coming in.
7.
And I have a couple other articles that I'll bring forward as well.
Well, this is the whole problem. That's why it's needed to be on a Saturday, because it's gonna end up with 20 articles.
What-
Or other people will put in other articles.
Let's not
Well,
predispose
and-
it there.
And
This
we're
is
the
what-
board of selectmen, we
this-
don't have to put articles
Yeah.
on
Well,
it.
it's
we-
true, but this is what seems to normally happen. I'm talking
Martha,
about.
we can entertain the town manager's proposals. That doesn't bind us to accepting them as articles.
Well,
We have to have it open for 7 days, and then we can put stuff on there or not.
So the time starts tonight, right? Oh,
We have to vote,
To-
I think, officially, right? Do
Well, we should have asked town council to read the bylaw to make sure this is.
Yeah,
the
once they
bylaw's
were
correct.
certified today, then this is receipt
It's
of
45
them.
days from
After
receipt,
receiving, yeah,
from
I
receipt of
understand
the
that.
Car-
Okay.
And I think Carol St. Pierre may be able to advise us as to what the earliest date is, Fred.
But we probably should set the date today, right?
I would think it would make some sense.
Unless we
Well, if we
come
have
back
to have it
tomorrow
open
night
for
or
7
something.
days, it's 1, 2, 3, 4,
7
5,
business
6,
days, right?
7, so, the 31st or the 1st.
Yeah,
How do you get-
so you'd actually vote to open the warrant tonight?
So if we open the
Because
warrant,
otherwise
Well, we
it-
set the date, I mean.
we could set the
If we're
date
trying
and open the warrant, and then close the warrant in 7 days.
Mhm.
So if we did that, we would, if we open the warrant
Halloween?
on the 22nd, and we close it
How appropriate.
on, what do you-
29th?
It would be the 31st,
it would be the
How
31st,
many
right?
days?
7. So
Seven, oh.
tomorrow would be the first business day,
Right.
the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, or no, sorry, 25th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st.
Saturday before Thanksgiving?
Is it 7 days or 7 business days?
7 days.
7 days.
Okay.
Oh, 7 days, so it
Yeah,
could be
so
a
it could be
Saturday
a
and
week from
Sunday?
tonight, right?
Mhm.
Or a
Oh.
week from tomorrow or something?
And the 45 days is
Okay,
7 days,
so it
is
could be the 29th,
days, not business days.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
And then,
Well, I mean, Thanksgiving week is kind of out, isn't it?
well, you could do it the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Well, which is Thanksgiving, the 21st or the
28th.
28th? I'm pretty sure. Let me get my book out, make sure. Every day is
I
a
think
holiday
it-
to me.
I think it doesn't make any sense to try and do it that week.
No.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so it has to, it means you're really to December 2nd.
Second. So
Through
was
the
it,
6th. So it's, the choices are,
Is the 6th valid or is it the
One-
5th?
the 6th
No, the
is
6th is the last
45
day.
days, yeah.
Okay.
So Monday or through Friday. And Hanukkah runs through Thursday.
So that week's really out too, unless we do
Well, you
Friday.
can't, you're at the limit, 45 is the limit.
But 6 is,
You
if
can't do
Hanukkah
it with-
ends on the 5th.
Oh, yeah, so Friday night,
So
we
we
can have
could
a
do
special
Friday
Friday
night.
night and not be in Hanukkah, and we
Right.
can meet the 45-day deadline.
That was an issue, I remember, in one of the more
Yep.
recent,
You have to do that.
so that would be it. So we vote to open it tonight.
Wait a minute, so let me get this straight. We're gonna set it for Friday night?
I just
Yeah.
wanna ask,
Yeah.
is there any time period earlier that we could do that?
Well, your
Well, Hanukkah
warrant has
runs-
to be in the homes 2
Hanukkah
weeks
starts the
before.
27th and is over the 5th.
Okay, so,
So
So if
that
you-
really leaves you the 6th,
If
unless you
close-
wanna have it on Hanukkah.
If you close
can't
the
have it on
warrant on the
Hanukkah.
31st,
right,
and it's gonna take time to put the warrant, well, it shouldn't, because there'd be limited
What time does
amount.
Hanukkah end on the 5th? Isn't
And
that-
then it's
I
gonna
don't
have-
know, is it sunset?
Evening.
I think
Yeah,
they
it is
start and end on
sunset. You can't have
sunsets.
it on
Sunset.
Hanukkah. Yeah.
but we were gonna close the warrant on Tuesday, the 29th. Right, and then it needs,
No, we were gonna close it on the 31st, right?
Well, it's
So it's
7
gonna be
days. you don't
7
have to-
days.
7 working days.
7 working days.
No, I think it's just 7 days. isn't it?
Just
I'm sorry,
7.
7 days, so that's
It's
the
just 7
29th.
days, yeah.
Yeah.
that's the 29th.
This
This
is-
is missing the weekends.
Guys, you only get 45 minutes before it's next Tuesday.
7 days
Okay.
is the 31st.
Wow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow
Good
is
night.
Good
the
night.
Thank you.
23rd. So that's the first day, is the 23rd,
Thanks,
right?
Paula, thanks, Mary.
Thanks.
Good night.
Oh, that's right, this calendar doesn't have weekends on it. Not very helpful.
No, this is very poor.
That's very confusing. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Well, the top does, yeah, well,
No, well, oh, yeah,
the
the
little
top does,
tiny
okay.
dates,
The
the
little
month
tiny
before and
dates.
after,
So
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 29th is the 7th. I stand corrected, so that's, so duh, Karen, yeah, it would be 1 week.
It's the beginning of the holiday, I mean, a lot of people leave for
Well, we have
Thanksgiving.
a problem that by the bylaw, we have to have the warrants in the homes 2 weeks before.
Did Ray wanna say anything? He just
Huh?
left. Ray didn't wanna say anything, did he?
I don't know.
Yeah, he just left.
He's
Right.
not shy, he would've made it well known if he
Yeah, I
could.
guess so.
Excuse me.
So that means you're gonna have the warrant out the 9th in the homes.
I mean, this is
So
so
if you
irregular.
Close it. It's very irregular.
Well, is somebody seeing a date on the other end of this?
I only see the 23rd.
The 23rd?
Saturday the 23rd, but I don't know if that gives us enough time to get, the warrants would then have to be in the homes by the 8th? No,
The
It'll
9th.
be 2 weeks back.
I'm getting so confused, I
The
gotta go
9th.
back up to the little numbers.
November 9th.
Yeah,
So they'd have to be in
let me
9
use my,
warrants.
wait a minute, I got this here.
So they'd have to be mailed.
It'd be ready to
You
be the
basically-
8th
yeah,
or 9th of
Yeah,
November.
basically, you'd have to have the final approval of the warrant done
Yeah, I mean,
November 1st.
I understand, you know, that the citizens that did this were very well intentioned, but I don't think that it was very well thought out as far as,
Dates.
Well, November
It's
23rd
what
is
we have.
32 days from now.
Mm.
So, and it seems like between 32 days and 45 days, we've only found two possible dates,
Yeah, the 6th and the 23rd.
the 23rd and the 6th,
Because if you eliminate Thanksgiving weekend,
plus Hanukkah, yeah.
Plus
That wipes
Hanukkah.
out all
so
the
if you, but
choices.
if you do the 23rd, Fred, you gotta have the warrants in the home the end of the week of, like around the 8th or 9th. That means they have to be mailed maybe that
It
Wednesday.
is the 22nd.
That means they have to be done and to the printer next week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the unknown, is we don't know what other types of petitions are coming in. You know, very well could we have to accept everything.
Right.
Some may be more appropriate at the annual, you know, having to deal with certain
But if
issues.
it's a citizen's petition, we
Yeah,
can
no, we
take
have to
it.
accept all of them, so we have to leave time for the town government to
Plus everything
make
else we're
reviews
doing.
and recommendations on things before we get to the floor.
and we're,
I think
and we're
we're looking at
interviewing,
the
and we're interviewing
6th.
candidates too for,
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
you forgot about that,
In the meantime,
in the
And we're,
meantime.
and we're
we've got-
figuring,
this is, these being the dates that we have.
Yeah.
I would, you know, let's take a look at this from the perspective that no matter what, that petition's in front of the voters.
Yep.
The question then is, what do we want on the warrant? Okay, if
I don't want anything.
Yeah,
Okay. And if the goal is to then expedite the meeting to make it as, you know, as painless as possible, given the time of the year, then, you know, you can look at it from by adopting the policies that says, look, I mean, you know, we're not out promoting a big agenda, other than what's in
Gotta
front
get
of
through
us,
this.
right?
yep.
So then I recognize that Hanukkah falls in here, Thanksgiving falls in here. There's no way to avoid
Somebody,
either holiday or offending someone. Can we be flexible?
Well, you could either have it the 23rd or the 6th.
Well, that wasn't
Unless
quite
we
the
could have a-
flexibility I was looking for.
Well, if you
Looks like Hanukkah.
what kind of flexibility?
Fred,
I'm
Just-
look, I mean, we
Hanukkah
have had these on
ends
Monday
at
nights,
sunset
we've
Yeah,
had
but-
them
on the 5th.
on Saturdays. If this
So-
if this agenda is as quick as what's in front
Is that
of
what
us
it
and
says?
maybe a counter proposal
Ends
on
in the evening,
what's that?
Hanukkah. Ends in the evening of the 5th. Begins at
I don't-
sunset and
I
ends
mean,
in the
My
evening.
understanding is most holidays start at sunset and end at sunset, but I'm not absolutely, I'm
Sure.
not an authority on
Not
it, so.
sure.
Yeah, I think,
Anybody out there?
well, it was, the Jewish holidays was a big issue in one of the other
Here, yep,
Yeah.
things, so let's
Last-
not even go there.
was, yeah, last December, yep.
So,
That's special.
So the other opportunity would, I mean, we've decided Thanksgiving week is out, right? We don't
Right.
wanna have it
Well,
on the
the
25th or the
23rd
twenty-sixth?
is before the,
That Saturday?
yeah, Saturday before.
Saturday or Monday or Tuesday would be too much. I mean, people are traveling, they're,
Yeah, you could, yeah, afterwards too, after Thanksgiving. The airlines, I took my family away, and we came back 2 days after,
well,
on a Tuesday.
if we scrambled and we did it on the 23rd, it's a Saturday, which means that we're not disenfranchising, many people, which we have recently, who can't come out at night.
yeah.
And it's before the Thanksgiving holiday, before people go away for vacation, before the holiday shopping starts.
Hey, look,
It-
if it's possible to get the warrants out in time, great. Let's go for the 23rd.
that's a month from tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible to get the warrants out in time?
Michael, what do
If
you
the
think?
warrant isn't anything more than what we've got, it should be. The warrant won't be that difficult. It won't take a long time for town, if it's just a citizen's petition, then town council will look at it for legality, but.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they do that. 'Cause what,
Well, we always did in the past, and it's only recently that that hasn't been done. There was always a cooperation with the citizens.
wish they did that to that medical marijuana law.
That would have been a
What
plus.
mess is that? What about, I mean, is Monday the 25th an option? I mean, I guess
No,
this just buys us a
I don't
couple
wanna have
days.
it on,
We've had such great turnout though
no,
on
we
Monday
really
nights.
haven't. We haven't had the elderly, and I've gotten, lots of
Am I
requests.
wrong?
If we have a town meeting, have it during on Saturday.
It's just,
That's
this
my
is the
turnout.
expression of opinion as fact.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't want a group disenfranchised because it's late. And also, having at night, a lot of people who work late, and then they can't eat supper, and they can't home, and then the kids stay up late. I think
It's
it's
very
better during the
difficult
day.
too for some people, because I know in talking with people with young children, in order to make meetings, town meetings at 7:00 or, whatnot, it's just very difficult in getting children through supper and homework and whatnot, so nights are problematic. I mean, you're always gonna get people out to a meeting if there's a special article that drives them coming there. And there
Right,
have
this
been.
case may not be the case.
Well, no, but I mean, in
Right.
the meetings that you're referring to, Diane, I think there have been articles that have been very controversial, and people have turned out because they've had very strong feelings about them.
Okay, let's get back to picking a date.
Well,
Is it gonna, you wanna flip a coin between the 23rd and the
6.
6th?
That's true.
Mr. Chairman, the audience thing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, let's decide on the date.
Well, I'll decide on the 23rd, unless we can get a dispensation from the law to have it the 9th,
I don't know
the
how we do
7th.
that.
I don't
I'll
know.
call the governor first thing in the
Well,
morning.
why don't you? Sure. After
You don't
all,
have them on file?
you don't have them on file.
Let me ring them up.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now, you got the 9th, Jen said it takes 5 days to get the warrant, that's what we should budget, but I think we can get it done earlier.
Printed and everything.
Printed, I mean, they have to go out in the mail on the 8th, in the
Mhm.
post office, really, to be there on the 9th the next day. So that leaves us from the 8th to the 30th.
I mean, 23rd.
No, I'm looking at, going backwards,
You're
cause I
going
have a
backwards.
fixed date of the 23rd, and I'm going backwards trying to make this work.
Pick my kid up.
It means that a lot has to happen in the next week.
Convene at 7, Mackenzie.
Well, I mean, nothing technically happens in the next week, cause you have to leave it open for a week, it's what
But you
happens
could
after that.
You could prepare the warrant with the citizens
In
petition
advance,
article.
yeah, just keep adding into it.
And then if there are other petitions, they could be added into it, but it could be formatted and ready to go.
I wonder if you can. Just curious if you actually have to announce the date tonight, and if you can see what happens between now and the 29th.
So we're
think
opening the
about this.
warrant.
Oh, no.
No, it has to happen.
No, we're just gonna lose a week,
We have
Yeah.
to do it
and
today.
then we're gonna have Lex flexibility.
Well, you announced that you're accepting warrants, you gotta post
No,
it.
no, you gotta
Yeah,
post
no.
everything.
Everything runs off the
open
date
it.
we pick, everything runs back from that.
I think we can squeak that in on the 23rd. I mean, if Hanukkah ends on the 5th in the evening, then that's probably the better date, but if the 23rd is what you're gonna choose to do, we'll find a way of making it work. I'll make sure Dorenda's is geared up, and,
Can I make one, I mean, maybe, I mean, you can literally start, you know, cover sheet and then the back, the mail sheet.
yeah, we can do that, and, probably what I would suggest is that we normally try to have the recommendations in with the printing of the warrant, particularly at annual town meeting, because we have the time to do that. You may not have a chance to vote on the articles
For the printing.
before the printing.
But that's happened a lot.
Well, I'm not saying it hasn't, I'm saying we're trying not to let that happen, but that could be an outcome that you have to deal with.
Well, if the warrant closes on the 29th and we're meeting on the 29th, we could put an agenda item that, for us to vote the articles.
You may not know until the 29th what you're gonna be voting on.
That's true.
I mean, I guess I'm looking at it that I'm not anticipating that there's going to be, zoning or planning or any complicated, bylaws. If there are
Well, again,
citizens petitions, do we vote?
We just
We
don't
don't-
know what's gonna come in. We have to accept everything, even if,
Everything, right.
even if it's got a
But I was
technical
trying-
problem.
Can I
Yeah.
make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I
What?
make a suggestion, just in terms of the work we need to do.
Yeah,
It would be, what if we met, and I'm sorry to do this, but what if we met on Monday night to figure out whether we want to put any kind of a counter financial article in there? Because we can't really have that if the warrant articles are due on the 29th, which is the date of our next meeting, they would be due theoretically at the close of business, which is 7 PM. So, we're not gonna have time to draft anything unless we do it on Monday night or prior to that meeting.
Well,
I think the way we should look at this is, I'd agree with that if there was a lot going in OPEB because it's irreversible, but the fact of the matter is with such little amount going to OPEB, everything else is reversible. We can just reverse it at the next town meeting.
mm-hmm.
In other words, we can fix everything at the annual town meeting. So we're forced into putting this in there, and then at the annual, we'll put everything through the whole budget cycle and we'll move it around then.
If we make other
If
decisions.
we
Okay.
decide to move more into OPEB or
Okay.
whatever, we'll lose the interest in the OPEB in the meantime, which somebody might consider fiscally irresponsible, but I think we can move on.
But we'll have met the other obligations. Okay, yep, that makes sense.
You have to wait until the end before you can make any decisions.
So, Michael,
Seven,
just-
you can't change a meeting date for the 7 days. You gotta do it. That's not responsible government.
I was
I
just
think if
suggesting
anybody
we had an
has-
extra meeting,
yeah.
not setting
Well,
reviewing any other dates.
that would be just to do an alternate to this, right?
Yes, if you.
Yeah, so
if-
so my argument is that the only thing that's not reversible in here is the OPEB vote for the
Yep.
250,000. Everything else, we can move at the annual town
Next
meeting if
meeting.
we decide there was a better way to do it.
Got it. Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Yep, it's fine.
But, for instance, if we go to town meeting and somebody says they want to put more in OPEB, we can't do it because it's limited by this. This is the upper limit on everything.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So,
So somebody couldn't put forward an amendment?
no, this is the upper limit on everything.
Great.
Can't
Okay.
do
Has
it.
to be within the scope.
Yeah,
Okay, so, we're gonna go with the 23rd.
okay.
So do you need a motion?
We do. Anybody opposed to that? Okay,
I don't know if I can be there, but.
Saturday, November 23rd for the special town meeting, and that we,
Is that at 9
What
o'clock?
time?
9
9,
a.m.
10
Yeah,
is
9
traditional
o'clock,
in there.
9 AM.
9
Want to do
a.m.
9 AM?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay. Do
and
we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The only thing, just as a caution, we should check tomorrow on the availability of venues, because there's very likely could be some sporting events,
Not,
especially if we do it at the high school,
it's
which.
pretty, I think the football is over then, because then
Do
they
you have a
it at-
preference whether it's the gymnasium or the auditorium? The gymnasium comes with a cost.
What is the cost?
What about over
But it-
here?
Okay,
about-
hold on a second. Does town council review this?
Yes. He reviews everything.
He's looked at this and said it
He had
meets
it
all the
when he
requirements?
left, yeah.
He did look at
He
it?
had just
No, he
gotten
just
it,
got
though,
it.
Okay, all right,
this
so,
evening.
so I would just caution that we make this subject to town council reviewing the legality of it. In other words, I don't wanna call it special if
Good point.
this doesn't meet the legal requirements, so.
Okay.
Well, you either have to call a special or not. You gotta either do it or not.
Well, you
Is
can
there-
call a special subject to it meeting the, we're being forced to call a special, which is fine, we can do it subject to it meeting the legal requirements. We
Yeah.
can't be forced to call a special for something that doesn't meet the legal requirements.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I'm just saying, as a caution here, we should add that little clause in there, that if this does not meet the legal requirements, then we can decide whether we wanna call a special or not. Okay,
Yeah, that makes some sense.
all right.
So.
Do we need to, we're gonna check on availability for the 23rd, it's 9 AM. Subject to this meeting, all the requirements to force us to call a special, we're setting a date for the 23rd. So if we find out in the next week that it doesn't meet the requirements, this will be on the agenda
Cancel it.
for discussion, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay,
it's been moved and seconded.
further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
So now we need to open it and close it?
Yeah, we need a motion to open the warrant.
I'll move that we open the warrant tonight, the October 22nd, and close it on Tuesday, October 29th.
Second.
Subject to it being
Subject
legally
to-
called special.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay,
Over the page. 2 taxi license requests.
taxi
Minutes.
licenses.
Oh, goodness.
Does anybody
gracious.
remember Maxie the taxi?
No.
You do? Yeah.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
He always had a cigarette going. Yeah.
Okay.
What do we have to vote on?
2 taxis,
Okay.
livery
Yeah,
service.
okay.
Right, so this we did, this we did.
I don't wanna,
Okay,
Oh, that,
everybody got the
tax-
licenses out?
Yeah,
I
Yes.
don't know what I did with mine.
here.
Okay. First one, well, the two of them, for a Hackney license, Christopher LaRoche of 25 Ripley Road, and Widmeyer Marcus Charles, 247 Forest Ave.
yeah, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Selectmen comment. Martha?
Okay, just have, where are they? Why don't you, oh, wait a minute, let me find my comments here. It's, I went to the, Conservation Commission and they reorganized, so I wanted to tell you the different offices. Chairman is Jack Creighton, Vice Chairman is Patrick Kennedy, and Clerk is Jim Martin.
Wow.
And they had a very nice meeting, and there was one other thing, I can't, why did somebody else do it? I can't find my, everything's been organized. Well, wait a minute, I did find it here. Oh, I wanted to talk about the, authors at the library. It was excellent.
Oh, I went too. Yeah, it
Oh,
was really
very good. And I got another copy of the list, and I posted it in the town hall here, because it really was terrific.
Great list.
Yeah, Caputo, and he was excellent. That's it.
Okay. Karen?
I don't really have anything, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, except
Oh, you do?
Except that I
Okay.
got an email late this afternoon from the Cohasset Common Historic Commission.
Yeah.
And they have nominated someone for the remaining associate position, and Tracy has that, and if we could vote on it at the next available meeting. You didn't get that?
Cohasset
Okay, from Peter Wood? Okay,
Historic Common
yeah, it's just one person.
District, okay.
Yeah. I can't remember it, I'm sorry. It was late, it was at the end of the day, I was running around.
Okay, Diane?
I'm just gonna just say a couple of quick, upcoming events. The Cohasset Historical Society's having a haunted happenings on Saturday, October 26th. You can go to their website and get all the information, but it looks like a blast. And then also, is Coral gonna come in and talk about the Veterans
Next week.
Forum next week?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll hold off on that, that's it.
Steve?
In the interest of the hour, I can't put two thoughts together, so I'm
Okay.
just gonna shut my mouth.
All right, I just, I did get an email from Diane about the town manager search, and there was, some questions about how the background checks have been done, just more informational, is there anything about overview summary about the candidates, how much number of applications, how many recruits, how big was the pool, and what's the interview structure going forward, and the protocols, and any general specific questions that we need to organize. So it's so I thought I would just put that together tomorrow, CC everybody, send it to Dan, just saying, hey, we're ready to start thinking about this when the time comes, and the possibility, find out what the possibility is that Dick Kobayashi could come in before and answer these one-on-one with us at a meeting.
Right.
Does that make sense to the board? I
Why do
just-
we need to do that?
Well, my big thing
I don't
is.
see why we need that.
Is the interview process, because the last time, and I keep going back to that, but, and I thought it was a good process, actually, in the interview, there's rules and you're supposed to ask everybody the same questions,
Yeah,
so
and
I
some
do
stuff
think it would
we're
be.
not supposed to look at, too.
Right,
Yeah.
there's some stuff we're
Yeah,
not supposed to
it's
need, so
legally, yeah.
or questions we're not supposed to ask, or
Yeah.
whatever, so I do think we should be briefed before we
We
start
need
the
to have all
interview
the questions
process.
vetted, and make sure there's no problems,
Right.
yeah.
Right, I
Yeah.
agree, Diane, I think it's important for us to have,
Questions,
our
yeah.
meetings get taken over, as we discussed with Nutting, but we
Yeah.
really do need to, as you say, get this right, and we need to set aside time to review, how we're gonna do the interviews, when we're going to do them.
I think as well, since we didn't have a screening committee of town residents, I think we should talk, I would like advice on some of
How
the
to
things I'm thinking
compensate
of.
for that, yeah.
Well, whether we can have submitted questions from employees, or how we can involve others in the process of the hiring, of the interviewing process. And it's tricky, so I think we need some professional guidance on that. So it'd be great if he could come in and do that.
I'm
Gee, our
sure he can
meeting
provide
next-
us with a script.
Yeah.
It's getting awfully busy next week.
We got a busy month,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
it
okay,
just got a lot busier.
yeah.
Let's get out the stuff we don't need
Yep.
to do. Okay,
You want
Mr. Chairman,
minutes?
just
Yeah.
clarification, I didn't get an answer on special town meeting, the location.
The gym,
Well, that's the reason why I'm asking, is there is a cost for putting it in the gym, but
The-
since this is a special one with hopefully limited articles, should we focus on the auditorium, just to get people in and out quickly?
I'd love to, but I think I get complaints about that
The
last time.
auditorium
we
is
do-
difficult for a lot of
for
people to
people.
navigate.
Mhm.
What if we just had it next door?
Not enough room.
The Old Town meeting?
No,
I mean, the
it's
Old
not-
Town
no,
Hall
it's
in the
not-
auditorium?
It's not doing well.
Over here?
Yeah,
We could do that.
I don't
More than
know.
100 and some
Yeah.
odd people in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fire
that's why it's too
code is.
It's
small.
gonna top
You know,
out, I
We've
mean,
been
remember
having
you-
300-400 people at
Right,
the last couple town
restrooms,
meetings.
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
and you got a minimum of 100 for a quorum.
And you can only have about a little over 400 in that.
Well, I
see what the
think-
possibilities are at the schools. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think the gymnasium
Your
is ideal.
Your preference
It
is
is
the
ideal.
gymnasium, is what
Yes.
yeah.
If that doesn't work out, the backup is the auditorium.
And can I just put this on everybody's buzz when we look at the warrant? The gymnasium's called the Sullivan Gymnasium, and for the past couple of, probably 3 or 4, it hasn't printed the Sullivan Gymnasium, and I know that means a lot to the family. It was
Hot Sullivan, yeah,
Yeah,
I knew him.
I forgot about that. I've
I
had
knew all,
complaints
I know all
continually.
three of them. One's
So,
gone, but,
Let's
Yeah.
make sure it says that and honor him
yeah,
as was intended.
thank you.
Okay, are we doing minutes?
Yeah,
Oh, I forgot about that.
August 27th,
So
Hold on, I had a
we have a
couple little-
motion,
So moved.
we have a second. Any discussion? Who seconded that?
I'll second it. There you
See
go.
how I moved right through that?
Tracy, thank you very much for making those.
This has been, I think we've
So,
done it several times.
Moved them and seconded it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there was a minor change in this
Yeah,
one
very minor.
from last week, and I assume it's happened, so,
On page one, the fourth motion, only the word serious was stricken, the address deficit remains, and Stacy made that. The new before town manager you didn't make, so I
I
assume.
didn't because I listened to the tape.
Tape and it wasn't
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
okay.
That was the
Um,
only one that wasn't, everything else. was.
Okay, so that was just my mistake. And then there was revisions to the body text of the managing relationships, and Tracy put those in. And under the ideal candidate, the revision to strike the sentence about the ICMA from bullet number 4, and Tracy inserted that, so those were
excellent.
the changes.
Okay, any further discussion?
The only, I just have one
Yeah.
quick question on this, and Tracy, you can probably answer it. Did we actually have a separate vote on the options? Because it's not included in here.
Oh,
Oh, we did.
yeah,
It,
Are you
it
sure?
just says option A, it describes it, option B,
Yes,
then
we
there's.
did.
Yeah.
I
No, we did vote it.
No, I know we did.
And
Yeah.
then, well, the last vote noted was motion,
oh,
by
they
Selectman
amended the
Quigley
whole
for the
thing, yeah, but we had a
separate-
vote before that, you're
I
right.
know, I mentioned that last time, but apparently it
I missed
didn't.
that one totally.
It-
It was
didn't
3
get
to
in
2,
here.
right? Well, you have to check the tape,
Wait a
but
minute.
I believe it was,
3-2 was on the overall
Oh, no,
document.
no, motion by Selectman Quigley for board to accept town manager profile as, oh, no. As amended and authorize the chair, vote was 3 to
I
2.
think there was a separate vote,
Did-
and I'm.
It was.
wait a minute, didn't we all vote 5-0 for the whole document? Or was it, it was 3, the last two votes were 3-0, 3-2?
3-2.
No, I voted, my 3 to 2, my portion of the 3 to 2 vote against the entire document was based upon the options.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe
Right.
we
And we
There
had-
didn't.
there were
I
two
don't- I
separate
don't think
votes.
we
There
did.
there
Just
was,
wanted to check
Okay.
that.
No, there was a,
there was an option vote,
Yeah.
and then there was a vote the whole thing, because we had a
Right.
lot of changes.
There
yeah.
was an option vote.
I'll recheck it.
Thank you.
All right, so these ones stay
Okay.
until next week?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
folks.
No, that's
I'll-
very
I'll
important,
Yeah.
Diane, good
Yeah.
catch.
Figured it was
Okay,
very
September
important.
For all my,
17th.
September 17th.
We have a
What about
motion?
September 3rd?
September
September
3rd.
17th? No.
September
3rd
3rd.
and October 15th.
All right,
Yeah.
am I looking at the wrong minutes, or
Third.
Okay.
Maybe
I
the
had
minutes are
September,
wrong.
I've
I
got
might have
October-
put them in the
September
minutes
3rd.
wrong. I had October 15th,
How about if we move October 15th?
yeah,
Second.
October 15th. Do we have a motion?
One thing was, in the discussion of revised code of core values, and I picked this up because somebody spoke to me about it. We didn't revise the code of core values. We revised the code of core values for committees and boards
Oh, yeah,
appointed
change
by,
the title, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
by
yeah.
the Board of Select.
Secondary document.
Right.
Title change, yeah.
So that was confusing to somebody that talked to me about it. So if we could change that, Tracy.
Something's wrong.
Do you have the,
Oh, wait a minute.
no, I was gonna say, do you have the agenda? I think I just used that title as what was discussed under it, if you look at the motion.
Oh, okay, well, maybe,
But no, let me double check it, that's fine, I don't wanna be wrong, so, I'll double check it.
no, you know what? Let's get rid of it.
Fran Collins left,
So what are we
No,
doing?
never mind. I'm nuts. Never mind.
All right, so we ready to move it? It's moved and seconded. Do we, any further discussion?
I'll move in second.
This is October 15th?
Aye.
Aye,
The 15th, right?
Yeah.
15th, October
Okay.
15th.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's 4-0, Diane's stepped out. Okay, so I think the September 17th is an error on my part in the agenda.
Okay, so we're gonna do the third then.
Yeah, that's
I
not
didn't
on
get
the,
the
it's not,
17th.
I'm gonna have to put that on the next agenda.
Yeah.
All right.
Just a little typo.
Is this the third?
Yeah, but we're gonna
Yeah,
do
we're
that
gonna do
next
that
week.
next week.
Okay.
Okay, all right,
We'll get these minutes done sooner or later.
it's all right. You can't-
Okay, public comment. Public comment.
No comment? They're all exhausted.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Sure do.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Do we have lengthy discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
This is why we need to get control of our agendas.
Yeah,
Well, we start with good intentions, but it just, you know, it
Well,
just.
Well, we start with good intentions.